Chapter 2175. It was a man with green scales all over his body. He was twice as tall as an ordinary person. He looked at Yi Shiwen and the others with an insolent smile. The eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. The old butler read out the name with a heavy expression. In comparison, the Flying Cloud Castle was much more powerful than the Sky-Towering Castle. They had more top experts at the 9th level of Paong Realm than the Sky-Towering Castle. This elder of the Flying Cloud Castle might only be ranked 8th, but he was not weak in terms of strength. Just like Yi Shiwen, who dared to look down on him even though he was only the 9th elder of the Sky-Towering Castle. This was just a representation of the order of entry. Obviously, it was another tyrannical alien race. TSK, 8th brother, you are right. These people from the Sky-Towering Castle are really brainless. They fell into our trap with just a little bait. It is said that the 9th elder of the Sky-Towering Castle is new and inexperienced. He is also the weakest. By the time we kill him and occupy the Bloodstone Mine, it will be too late for the Sky-Towering Castle to react. Ah! Another figure slowly appeared in the void. It was a middle-aged woman. However, she did not have legs. Instead, she had a huge snake tail. She was a snake demon. Venomous woman, the 7th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. The old butler's face suddenly turned pale. It was not a big deal if there was only one. On his side, Yi Shiwen was also at the 9th level of Paong Realm. It could be said that they were evenly matched. However, with the appearance of another one, the situation changed in an instant. No matter how powerful Yi Shiwen was, it was impossible for him to deal with two experts at the same level. These two experts were very powerful. If it was 2 years ago when he had not broken into the 7th level of Paong Realm, it would have been a little troublesome to deal with them. However, he did not care at all now. After breaking into the 7th level of Paong Realm, his strength was almost comparable to the 9th level of Paong Realm. In the entire Flying Cloud Castle, there was only one Paong Realm expert at the 9th level of Paong Realm, the Great Elder. As for the others, they could not cause him any trouble at all. Even if the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle came, he was not afraid at all. Although he was not completely sure that he could deal with Yao Xingqing and the others, ordinary people at the peak of the 9th heaven of Paong Realm could not cause too much trouble to him. Once he condensed his Saber Dao incarnation, everything would immediately change, and his combat power would soar to a terrifying level. Damn it, this is bad. They've sealed off the entire space. We can't send a message back even if we want to. The old butler's expression changed completely. The Bloodstone Mine was only 100,000 miles away from the Sky-Bearing Castle. Originally, as long as they released the news, the other elders would quickly come to support them. In fact, there was even a teleportation formation in the Bloodstone Mine that could be activated in an emergency. Hence, even though the distance was relatively far, it was not that easy to attack. However, now that they had been lured outside and the surrounding space had been sealed, they couldn't even send a message. Wouldn't that be equivalent to waiting for death? It seemed like the people from the Soaring Cloud Castle had gone to great lengths to deal with them. Yes, you're dead today. You can't even send a message out. By the time we completely occupy the Bloodstone Mine, it will be too late for the Sky-Bearing Castle to react. The 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle said with a sinister smile. Why? Is there no one else? Yi Shiwen sneered, seemingly a little dissatisfied with only 2 people coming. This immediately made the 2 elders of the Flying Cloud Castle, who thought that they had victory in their hands, furious. Yi Shiwen's attitude was simply looking down on them. One person is enough to deal with you. The 7th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle sneered. He was still trying to flirt, but in Yi Shiwen's eyes, it was extremely disgusting. Is there no one else? I'm so disappointed. Yi Shiwen chuckled. At this time, there were more figures around, all of whom were myth masters. However, compared to the two Pawang realm experts, there was nothing to compare. What do you mean? The eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle looked at Yi Shiwen vigilantly, not knowing what he meant. Because if only the two of you go to hell, wouldn't it be a little too lonely? Yi Shiwen said with a sinister smile. Good boy, insolent. The eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle suddenly became furious. His whole body suddenly tore open the space on the spot, and in an instant, he had already blasted in front of Yi Shiwen. He intended to use his tyrannical body to forcefully eat Yi Shiwen. Boom! His big hand directly stretched out of the space, wanting to grab Yi Shiwen to death. However, his power was limited to the area around Yi Shiwen, and it was impossible for him to penetrate that layer of transparent barrier to blast Yi Shiwen's body. How is this possible? How can I not break the space? The eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was suddenly stunned, and revealed a completely inconceivable expression. Too slow, too slow. Yi Shiwen sneered, and directly grabbed with one hand. On the spot, an astonishing blood-colored crack of martial arts tore open the space, and instantly cut the air into pieces. It was very terrifying. Soul-crushing blood claw. The power of this claw was tyrannical to a terrifying extent. Those experts of the Flying Cloud Castle were shocked by the power of Yi Shiwen's claw, and they could not believe it. Yi Shiwen's soul-crushing blood claw directly grabbed in front of the eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, and saw that the eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle had directly emerged with countless layers of defense, and even a pseudo-divine tool armor. Such an armor was more difficult to make than ordinary pseudo-divine tools. Bang! 5 incomparably powerful claws forcibly grabbed the pseudo-divine tool armor, and a burst of cracking sound was heard. The pseudo-divine tool armor that seemed to be able to defend against the collapse of the world actually shattered inch by inch under Yi Shiwen's soul-crushing blood claw, and then the terrible power directly fell on the eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. Boom! A terrifying mushroom cloud slowly rose up, and the eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was blasted away on the spot. Although his life was saved by the pseudo-divine artifact armor, and he didn't die on the spot, he was still left with a huge bloody scar on his body, and he screamed in pain. Whether it was in the eyes of the experts of the Sky-Bearing Castle or the Flying Cloud Castle, Yi Shiwen was simply as terrifying as the resurrection of a peerless demon god. In their hearts, they had a terrible idea of not daring to be enemies with him, especially the experts of the Sky-Bearing Castle. At this time, they finally understood why Yi Shiwen could replace the original Ninth Elder and become the new Ninth Elder. Even the Great Elder was far from such a terrifying strength. Yi Shiwen did not stop for a moment, and once again grabbed with his claw. Endless claw power directly tore the sky, like a fierce tiger attacking, and directly clawed the eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle to death. Compared to Yi Shiwen, whose combat strength was comparable to the peak of the 9th level of Pawang Realm, the eighth elder was just an ordinary Pawang Realm expert. He was still too inexperienced. Damn it! At this time, the 7th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle finally could not bear it anymore. In just a moment, as the top combat strength of the myths, the 7th elder was easily defeated by Yi Shiwen. In fact, he was not even suppressed, but defeated in a single move. How terrifying such strength was! It was simply unimaginable. At this time, the experts of the Flying Cloud Castle also recovered from the shock of Yi Shiwen after being reprimanded by the 7th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, and attacked one after another. They had no choice but to attack, even though they were not prepared. Yi Shiwen attacked ruthlessly, and directly displayed the invincible lunatic. In the face of the joint attack of many experts of the myths, he did not care at all. He directly withdrew the soul-crushing blood claw, and then switched it to the freedom claw. Whoosh! In the sky, an extremely violent sound of breaking through the air was heard. Yi Shiwen directly grabbed with his claw shadows that covered the sky, and directly enveloped all the experts of the Flying Cloud Castle. He was fearless. At this time, many of the remaining experts of the Flying Cloud Castle also attacked one after another. A terrifying martial arts torrent blasted the sky, and wherever it passed, the space would shatter in response. Boom! The scene was horrifying, as if it was the end of the world. A huge mushroom cloud rose, and the terrifying energy storm directly obliterated the atoms. The fierce collision between the two sides could almost be said to be evenly matched. Even Yi Shiwen had to take a few steps back. Die, five-colored sky-swallowing python! The seventh elder of the Flying Cloud Castle roared furiously. His face, which was originally quite charming, was completely distorted. Behind him, an incomparably huge python suddenly condensed with a schwa sound. The 5 colors of the python constantly rotated and flickered with a bewitching radiance. That incomparably terrifying snake body directly swung down towards Yi Shiwen. Ninth Elder, be careful. That is her original body. She has the bloodline of the ancient 7-colored sky-swallowing python. The old butler immediately reminded. He could not help but gasp when he saw that the 7th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle had directly transformed into her original body. Compared to when she was in human form, she was much more tyrannical. The 7-colored sky-swallowing python was also famous in ancient times. It was almost invincible. It did not need to transform into a divine dragon because its original existence was one of the most tyrannical exotic beasts. Although the 7th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle only had a portion of the 7-colored sky-swallowing python's bloodline and could only use the state of the 5-colored sky-swallowing python, it was still terrifying enough. The 5-colored sky-swallowing python had just manifested, and it already had a terrifying momentum that could conquer the world and make all things in the world surrender. This was the invincible realm of an expert at the 9th heaven of the Paong realm. This was the true strength of an expert at the 9th heaven of the Paong realm. It was definitely not the kind of person who was easily defeated by Yi Shiwen. It could only be said that Yi Shiwen was too abnormal. In the face of such a tyrannical state, the experts of the Flying Cloud Castle and Sky-Bearing Castle all retreated, not daring to take it head-on. Chapter 2176. What a joke! 3 terrifying experts of the 9th heaven of Paong realm were fighting here. Without any protective measures, almost everything within a radius of 1,000 miles would be smashed to pieces. Is this the 7-colored sky-swallowing python? The 7-colored sky-swallowing python was quite famous in the past, but it's still not enough. Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. At this time, the huge tail, like an iron rod, directly swung down with boundless power. The terrifying aura in the process of swinging down, it was unknown how many times more tyrannical it was. Compared to the 8th Elder of Soaring Cloud Castle, it was a lot more tyrannical. It was almost close to the level of the peak of Paong Realm 9th level. As long as she could really break into the peak of Paong Realm 9th level, then there was only one last step left to prove her Tao. Yi Shiwen's expression did not change. He operated the tyrant golden body, growing bigger and bigger. In the law world, a monstrous golden divinity directly spread out. There was a burst of golden aura, like the resurrection of the ancient demon god. The chi and blood in his body were also raised to the extreme at this moment. Inside his golden divinity, the 5 Emperors' battle suit had been put on, but at this time, it was completely rendered golden by the golden divinity. Now Yi Shiwen did not want to expose his identity. These obvious characteristics might be discovered by others, so he had to do some concealment work. Looking from afar, Yi Shiwen seemed to be wearing golden armor. His face was resolute, and his momentum was monstrous. He was domineering and invincible. He was like a tyrannical and invincible overlord. All those who stood in front of Yi Shiwen would be beheaded by him without any accident. Yi Shiwen finally made his move at that critical moment. He suddenly stretched out his hand and unleashed the soul-crushing blood claw. The golden crack on the claw expanded bigger and bigger. He then grabbed towards the terrifying tail that was swinging down towards him. Clang! 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 The collision between the two sides actually burst into sparks, as if two pieces of metal had collided fiercely. Then boundless divine light splashed out, forming an incomparably powerful space storm, which spread out like stormy waves. The void collapsed inch by inch in the face of this terrible collision. Puff! Puff! Pooh! Some of the weaker experts from the Flying Cloud Castle and the Sky-Bearing Castle were sent flying. They kept spurting out blood and their eyes were filled with horror. They didn't expect that they couldn't even withstand the aftermath of the attack. The realm of Paong and the realm below the realm of Paong were on a completely different level. The gap between the 9th level of Paong and the realm below the 9th level of Paong was also completely different. This scene was too terrifying. One could almost see the primordial chaos swaying in the void. This attack seemed to be able to pierce through the universe. Everyone's eyes widened. Whether it was Yi Shiwen or the 7th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, both of them were extraordinarily fierce. However, everyone could still see that Yi Shiwen had the upper hand in this attack. The most direct evidence was that the 7th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle had been sent flying dozens of miles away. However, Yi Shiwen had remained motionless. Then, he took a step forward and transformed into an astonishing golden ray of light. He then rushed towards the 7th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle to kill him. When he galloped, he had the aura of a magnificent army, endless and terrifying to the extreme. "It's time to end this. Die," Yi Shiwen said faintly. Then, he stomped his foot directly towards the 7th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. He annihilated the space and fell directly on the body of the 7th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, who had transformed into a 5-colored heaven-swallowing python. Boom! There was another terrifying loud noise, and a huge mushroom cloud slowly rose up. Puff! The 7th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle finally couldn't bear it anymore. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and her entire body fell to the ground. From afar, it looked like a huge mountain had crashed down. The entire ground was trembling, and a huge crack appeared. The 7th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was also severely injured in an instant. She kept spitting out blood, and her huge body was constantly twisting. Everyone kept quiet out of fear, and took a breath of cold air. The 7th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was also a well-known existence in the Flying Cloud Castle. Not only because she was a woman, but more importantly, her strength was also one of the strongest below the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. But now, she was easily defeated by Yi Shiwen. What a heaven-defying thing this was! Invincible, he really has an invincible posture. This is a sign of the Tao proving posture. The old steward couldn't help but say. Being able to cultivate to this level, he naturally wouldn't be a person with shallow knowledge. However, there were many experts at the 9th heavenly layer of Paong realm, but only a few of them could prove their Tao. The most important thing was to have this kind of invincible posture. Any expert who proved their Tao was an invincible existence. Yi Shiwen's complexion didn't change. He didn't know when a golden long sword had appeared in his hand. It stood erect above his open palm and rotated fiercely. An astonishing sword key splashed out and rotated continuously in his hand. Whoosh! The sword chi directly slashed down, and its target was the 7th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. This was the rhythm of killing him. Everyone was stunned. Yi Shiwen had actually dared to kill an Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. This was simply too crazy. Even the experts of the Towering Sky Castle were completely shocked. Compared to Yi Shiwen's audacity, they were nothing. They were just dwarfs in the presence of a great sorcerer. Although Yi Shiwen had such strength, the fact that he had such a heart made their scalp tingle. Stop! The 8th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle let out a loud shout. He had finally caught his breath. Then, he launched his attack. A dreadful divine power pervaded the air. It seemed as if it could collapse the heavens and shake the vault of heaven. Suddenly, a huge flag flew over. It swept out endless divine radiance towards Yi Shiwen. It seemed as if it wanted to sweep him into 4 directions. "That's the 8th-division celestial flag," the old butler exclaimed. "Ninth Elder, be careful. This is the instrument of the great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, the 8th-division celestial flag. It's a broken divine instrument. You must be careful." He was experienced and knowledgeable. He had once built the 8th-division celestial flag to display its power. That time, it brought him a very shocking shock. This was a broken divine instrument. It was much more tyrannical than ordinary pseudo-divine instruments. The entire flag was engraved with countless lines of law, stimulating an incomparably powerful power. Endless divine power was emitted, as if a god had been resurrected. How is this possible? Isn't the 8th-division celestial flag the instrument of the great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle? It has never been lent out. How could it be lent out at this time? It seems that they are determined to get our bloodstone mine. Damn it, they already have 2 bloodstone mines. Why do they still want to rob us of our bloodstone mine? They are trying to force us into a corner. Yi Shiwen was expressionless. Countless golden divinities flowed all over his body. He grabbed a long sword in his hand and directly slashed at the 8th-division celestial flag. The blow cut through the sky and the sky. It was as brilliant as a comet hitting the ground. Boom! There was a loud muffled sound. It was as if the entire universe was shaking. This was a shocking collision. The smoke and dust dispersed. Countless people looked over and saw that even though it had faced this terrible blow, the 8th-division celestial flag was still unscathed. Although Yi Shiwen had broken the attack of the 8th-division celestial flag, it seemed that he could not do anything to it. "Ha ha ha ha, you have surprised me. But it's useless. It's impossible for you to break the 8th-division celestial flag of our great Elder. I originally brought it out to prevent any accident. I wanted to use Ollie to deal with your great Elder, but it seems that it's not necessary now. It should be enough to deal with you. You can die in peace under this 8th-division celestial flag." The 8th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle laughed loudly. In the void, he held a flag in his hand. As he waved it, countless divine rays splashed out and condensed into a huge martial arts torrent in the void. With an unparalleled momentum, it blasted towards Yi Shiwen. This was an extremely terrifying power. It directly swept out and tore a huge crack in the void. The scene was unimaginable. "Ha ha, this is the consequence of going against our soaring cloud castle. No one can save you today. Go to hell." The 8th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle grinned. He wanted to watch Yi Shiwen die, but his expression immediately changed. He saw that the martial arts torrent directly blasted on Yi Shiwen's body, but it seemed to be absorbed by a powerful force. It could not really cause any harm to him at all. How is this possible? It's impossible. How can you block the bombardment of the 8th-division celestial flag? He looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Yi Shiwen had directly blocked this terrible torrent. Seeing this appalling scene, many people felt like they were about to faint. Was he still human? Was he some kind of monster? A damaged divine artifact. Although it would appear that it was damaged, it was not something that ordinary people could compare with. In fact, it was even more terrifying than a pseudo-divine artifact. At the end of the day, a pseudo-divine artifact was not a true divine artifact. On the other hand, a damaged divine artifact was a true divine artifact. How could ordinary people fight against a divine artifact that possessed divine might? It was unbelievable that Yi Shiwen could take it head-on. "I see. It is indeed very powerful, but it's a pity that it's in your hands," Yi Shiwen said lightly. "What did you say? Die?" The 8th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was shocked and angry. He waved the flag in his hand frantically. Chapter 2177. Boom! Another surge of divine might rose into the sky. Within Yi Shiwen's body, an equally powerful divine might rose, forcibly resisting the endless divine might of the 8-division celestial sphere flag. Divine tool, it's actually another divine tool. Many mythical masters felt like they were going crazy. Even if they were mythical masters, not everyone had the opportunity to see a real divine tool. Even if it was an incomplete divine tool, it was not something they could contend with at all. If it was a complete divine tool, it would not be easy for the two of them to activate it. However, if it was just an incomplete divine tool, they could still fully activate its great power. Boom! 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 Two incomparably powerful incomplete divine tools rose in the sky and collided fiercely above the sky. The divine might collided fiercely, bursting out endless divine light. Die. At this time, the seventh elder of the Flying Cloud Castle suddenly jumped out from the ground, ignited his chi and blood, and suddenly attacked Yi Shiwen. Despicable! The old butler could not help but shout, but it was useless. Although the seventh elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, who had transformed into the 5-colored sky-swallowing python, was beaten up by Yi Shiwen, it did not mean that he was weak. It was just that Yi Shiwen was too strong. In just an instant, the 5-colored sky-swallowing python directly opened its mouth, and countless fluctuations began to sway in its mouth. In an instant, a 5-colored torrent was blasted directly towards Yi Shiwen. You think you can hurt me? Yi Shiwen's eyes widened in anger. He wasn't afraid at all. He directly grabbed an amazing sword aura from the void. With the support of an amazing sword intention, the sword aura instantly slashed towards the 5-colored torrent that had blasted out. Boom! The sword principle and the 5-colored light overflowed in the air, shattering the void, directly turning the surroundings into a mass of chaos. This was a truly terrifying battle. Both sides had fought to the extreme, not giving each other any chance to hold back at all. Yi Shiwen's whole body was covered in golden light, like a golden overlord, monstrous spiritual power, and golden chi and blood dyed the entire world. He directly blasted towards the 5-colored sky-swallowing python. I originally planned to deal with you later, but since you've decided to come to my door to die, don't blame me. Yi Shiwen ignored the splashing multicolored divine radiance. His strongest point was undoubtedly his powerful body. So, he would naturally utilize it to the extreme. Bang! Yi Shiwen clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. He didn't use any martial arts moves. He just used his fists to attack the 5-colored heaven-swallowing python's body. Bang! The 5-colored heaven-swallowing python let out a blood-curdling scream. Its entire body was almost smashed by Yi Shiwen's punch. It screamed endlessly, and its mountain-like huge body was twisted together, smashing into the ground. This Yi Shiwen is truly a lawless lord. Our towering sky castle has an extraordinary lord. He doesn't even care about the people of the Flying Cloud Castle. He didn't hesitate at all. He said that he would kill them. He's really a lawless existence. I wouldn't be surprised if he dares to take this banner and flatten the Flying Cloud Castle. This 9th elder really has a powerful background. Whether it's his martial arts or his martial instruments, they're all extremely tyrannical. There's actually such a master. I've never heard of him before. There are too many masters in this world. The people of the Towering Sky Castle couldn't help but sigh. However, compared to the people of the Flying Cloud Castle, they were undoubtedly much calmer. Originally, they were on tenterhooks, fearing that they would be killed by the Flying Cloud Castle. But now, the situation had completely reversed, and they had the upper hand. The people of the Flying Cloud Castle were pale, but they didn't dare to leave because the 2 elders were still there. Moreover, many masters of the Towering Sky Castle were staring at them, not letting them escape. They almost died in the hands of these masters of the Flying Cloud Castle. How could these masters of the Towering Sky Castle be in a good mood? Now that the situation had reversed, how could they let them escape? Yi Shiwen almost killed the five-colored devouring python with a punch. On the other side, the eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle attacked Yi Shiwen like a madman. He knew very well that if he was alone, he would most likely die in Yi Shiwen's hands. He couldn't let Yi Shiwen go. The 8th Division celestial flag in his hand was constantly waving. Countless chaotic auras were thrown out, covering the sky and covering the earth like monstrous wave. It was incomparably terrifying, and directly smashed the void into pieces. Yi Shiwen didn't give in at all. The devil beckoning banner in his hand was also constantly swaying. The golden vitality was surging unceasingly, like stormy waves washing his body. In midair, he was constantly attacking the 8th Division Turbid Heaven flag, not giving in at all. That's all there is to it. Die. Yi Shiwen directly took a step in the void. He finally couldn't wait any longer. He wanted to end things with the 8th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. The auras of his whole body surged, blocking the heaven and earth. They were protected by the demon calling banner. The devil auras that burst out constantly collided with the chaotic auras of the 8th Division celestial flag. The power of the demon calling banner had returned to the extreme in his hands. As for Yi Shiwen himself, he casually grabbed the soul-crushing blood claw. Every time the soul-crushing blood claw destroyed a large area of the chaotic auras, he continued to attack the 8th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. I'll fight with you. I don't believe that the 8th Division celestial flag is worse than you. The 8th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle said while gritting his teeth. He thought that he would win this time. Who knew that there would be such an unforeseen event? He was going to suffer a great loss in the hands of Yi Shiwen. If this continued, it would be very normal for him to be beaten to death. He believed that the Flying Cloud Castle would soon receive the news and rush over. After all, they were only hundreds of thousands of miles away. The news that he had used the 8th Division celestial flag would soon reach the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. At that time, the Flying Cloud Castle should soon know that he was in big trouble. Although it was very likely that he would lose face and it would be impossible for him to complete the mission, for now, preserving his life was more important than anything else. The mission and the like were nothing. However, the bigger problem was that this place was only hundreds of thousands of miles away from the sky-bearing castle. In such an intense battle, whatever aura isolation formation he had previously set up was ineffective. At this time, the sky-bearing castle should soon receive the news and rush over. Even so, he hoped that a few more people from the sky-bearing castle would come quickly. At least, those people would know that the Flying Cloud Castle was powerful and would not dare to deal with them casually. However, this guy in front of him did not care at all. As the saying goes, the arrogant are afraid of the stupid, and the stupid are afraid of the reckless. The guy in front of him was both stupid and stupid. However, he did not know that Yi Shiwen was not a newborn calf that was not afraid of tigers. Instead, he had great strength and confidence. Therefore, he was not afraid at all. This was the confidence of a true powerhouse. At this time, the 7th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was punched by Yi Shiwen again. His entire body was about to fall apart. He could not care less. The only person he could rely on was himself. A rare look of suffering appeared on his face. This human in front of him was really too powerful. Even when he did not have the divine tool, this guy actually used his physical body to take on the attack. Moreover, he was actually fine. He was simply a monster in human form. If it was not for the restraint of the 8th Division celestial flag, he would probably have been crushed to death in an instant. It was just that the 8th Division celestial flag was not his divine tool after all. It could not display its full power. Therefore, it could only barely protect itself. In front of Yi Shiwen's offensive, it trembled like weeds. Yi Shiwen was like a god. He crushed everything along the way and swept across everything. The raging primal chaos energy was annihilated in an instant wherever he went. It couldn't even cause a ripple. The countless spaces couldn't stop his footsteps either. He was like a machine that crushed everything in its path. Some chaotic aura swept over from the sky, but it was easily extinguished by Yi Shiwen. It was as if the 5 bloody claw shadows in front of him were like 5 insurmountable mountains. There was no way to cross over them. Damn it, why is this happening? What kind of monster are you? Why can't even divine tools stop you? The 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle finally showed a look of horror. His face was already pale. With his skill, it was very difficult for him to activate a divine tool that was not his own. Not to mention such an intense battle. The real elemental energy generated in his body could not keep up with his consumption. In contrast, Yi Shiwen, who was also activating a divine tool, had surging real elemental energy in his body. It was like a long river, rushing out and sprinkling casually. He was simply a monster. A warrior at the 7th level of the Paong realm was actually more profound than him, a master at the 9th level of the Paong realm. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "If it is a real divine tool, of course it can stop me. But you are still far from it." His hands were like a millstone that could destroy the world, crushing all the illusions and efforts of the 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. He directly grabbed and extinguished the protective chaotic aura in front of him. Then, he directly slapped the chest of the 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. Bang! The chest of the 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was directly smashed like a piece of paper. It was smashed and caved in. Blood splashed out on the spot. "This game is over." Yi Shiwen immediately followed up with a soul-crushing blood claw. The 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was directly crushed into a mass of blood mist on the spot. His spirit was completely destroyed. He could not be more dead. Chapter 2178. This person is too terrifying. How can he be so strong? We are no match for him at all. Even the Great Elder isn't this terrifying. Many of the remaining experts of the Flying Cloud Castle had a mental breakdown after witnessing the death of the 8th elder. The person in front of them was not someone they could compare to. They did not even have the qualifications to look up to him. They were defeated this time. They did not even have the strength to fight back. What was even more terrifying was that Yi Shiwen had actually extended his hand towards the 8 Division Celestial Sphere flag. He was actually going to collect the 8 Division Celestial Sphere flag. If an ordinary person dared to touch the 8 Division Celestial Sphere flag, they would undoubtedly be courting death. They did not have the ability to do so at all. They would only be destroyed by the restriction inside the 8 Division Celestial Sphere flag. However, the person in front of them was completely different. He had the guts and the ability to do so. Although the divine might of a defective artifact was very powerful, he was not afraid at all. He was not afraid even when someone was controlling it. He was not afraid at all when there was no one controlling it. Moreover, he also had a defective artifact. As long as he used the Demon Beckoning Banner to suppress the 8 Division Celestial Sphere flag, he could easily subdue the 8 Division Celestial Sphere flag after sacrificial refining. After all, it was only a defective artifact. The spirit within it had long been annihilated. Otherwise, it would not have been so easily used by the Flying Cloud Castle. If such a thing were to happen, they could imagine how terrifying the Great Elder's anger would be when they returned. Most importantly, without the 8 Division Celestial Sphere flag, the Great Elder's strength would drop a lot. It would also be a huge blow to the Flying Cloud Castle. Although it would not be a fatal blow, it could not be helped that the deterrence of the Flying Cloud Castle would drop by a level. Go to hell. I will never let you succeed. The 5-colored sky-devouring python spat out a 5-colored divine radiance directly towards Yi Shiwen. It did not give Yi Shiwen a chance. Get out of my way. Yi Shiwen casually slapped the 5-colored divine radiance, and blew it up. However, taking advantage of this opportunity, the five-colored sky-devouring python used its spirit to connect with the 8-division celestial sphere flag. It directly took control of the 8-division celestial sphere flag. Then, it burst out an astonishing amount of chaotic energy and bombarded in all directions. Boom! The void was annihilated and collapsed inch by inch. It was like a landslide, and a tsunami-like power rushed towards Yi Shiwen. "You want to escape with just you?" Yi Shiwen couldn't help but sneer. He was protected by the devil beckoning banner. This monstrous power simply couldn't rush into his surroundings. Then, he used his golden hand to grab the 8-division spherical heaven flag. At this moment, the 8-divisional chaos flag used its chaotic chi to cut open a spatial rift. Under the control of the 5-colored sky-devouring python, it was about to escape into it. "Don't even think about leaving," Yi Shiwen shouted and chased after it directly. He took a step forward and turned into a golden streamer. He instantly arrived in front of the 5-colored heaven-swallowing python. Although he hadn't unfurled his devil wings, his understanding of movement techniques had already reached a shocking level. Even without the devil wings, his speed was still top-notch. He could travel 100,000 miles in a flash, which was the limit of his speed. The 5-colored heaven-swallowing python screamed when it saw that Yi Shiwen was not willing to let them go and almost instantly chased after them. "Monster, go to hell!" She was already scared to death by Yi Shiwen. She never thought that she would encounter such a monster one day. He even sacrificed a divine tool, but she couldn't take it down. This was a powerful existence that she had never encountered before. In the past, no matter what kind of existence it was nothing in front of a divine tool. Although the other party also had a divine tool, it couldn't ignore his tyrannical strength. "Even if I die, I won't let you succeed. Our great elder will definitely avenge us." She was already crazy. She directly whipped the 8-division spherical heaven flag into the spatial channel with her tail and disappeared in a moment. "I think you're courting death." Yi Shiwen was furious. He watched the cooked duck fly away. He was originally determined to get the 8-division spherical heaven flag. He planned to let the demon beckoning banner directly swallow the 8-division spherical heaven flag. In that case, the demon beckoning banner would definitely be able to go further and directly return to the level of a real divine tool. Then, he would have one more trump card. He would use it sooner or later in the future. Who would have thought that the 8-division spherical heaven flag would actually fly away in front of him? He was simply furious to the extreme. "You monster, go to hell!" The 5-colored heaven-swallowing python went crazy. The power of her whole body was surging wildly, and then instantly spread out in all directions. Boom! The 5-colored heaven-swallowing python actually self-detonated and directly turned into a super-large mushroom cloud of a nuclear bomb. It slowly rose up and instantly drowned everything within a radius of 10,000 miles. Even with Yi Shiwen's tyrannical physical body, he was directly pushed back thousands of miles. He was also blasted into a sorry state. Even the others at this time were immediately blasted into serious injuries. Although they were already far enough away, they were still injured by the shockwave. In addition, Yi Shiwen extended his domain in time to protect them, so they were only injured by the shockwave. As for those from the Flying Cloud Fortress, they were not so lucky. They were directly annihilated by the self-detonation. As for the experts from the Sky-Bearing Fortress, after recuperating their bodies, they were completely dumbfounded. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. How tyrannical was Yi Shiwen? An expert at the 9th level of Paong Realm. It could be said that none of the experts who could cultivate to this level were lucky. Without exception, all of them were people with firm minds. As long as there was a little hope of survival, they would not choose to self-detonate, which was a method that killed 1,000 enemies and sacrificed 800 of their own. This could only mean that the five-colored heaven-swallowing python had been beaten by Yi Shiwen to the point that it had completely lost its temper and fighting spirit. That was why it used the most intense method to retaliate against Yi Shiwen. What was even more terrifying was that Yi Shiwen was actually only forced to retreat. It could not even injure Yi Shiwen. How strong was he exactly? In their hearts, Yi Shiwen was probably no different from an invincible demon. Such a terrifying scene was deeply engraved in the depths of their souls. They would never forget it in this life. Originally, many people were not very convinced by this new ninth elder, but now, he suddenly didn't have any other thoughts. What a joke! At this time, Yi Shiwen didn't look for trouble with them. It was already very good. How could they still dare to resist Yi Shiwen? Yi Shiwen did not move for a while. Although the explosion just now did not injure him, how could it not affect him at all? It directly caused his blood to surge. If not for the demon summoning banner's protection, no matter how tyrannical his physical body was, it would not be unaffected at all. The power of a Pawang Realm 9th level expert's self-detonation was stronger than the full blow of a Pawang Realm Peak 9th level expert. Although the people of Flying Cloud Castle were all killed now, the 8-component heaven flag that he wanted the most had suddenly disappeared. He could not get it. If he could get the 8-component heaven flag and let the demon summoning banner devour it, he could then kill everyone in Flying Cloud Castle by himself. However, now that the 8-component heaven flag had escaped, it must have returned to the hands of the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. Therefore, he was not very confident. After all, the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was the true owner of the 8-component heaven flag. In his hands, the power that the 8-component heaven flag could display was far beyond that of the 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. In addition, the strength of the great elder of Flying Cloud Castle was probably not inferior to the current Yi Shiwen. Although he was not afraid, he could not really do anything to the great elder of Flying Cloud Castle. He could only give up the idea of dealing with Flying Cloud Castle for now. Moreover, there was no grudge between the two sides. His top priority now was to condense the Saber Dao incarnation. As long as he had the Saber Dao incarnation, then no powerful enemy would be a match for him. Let's go back. Due to the self-detonation of the 7-colored sky-devouring python, this space was directly swept away. There was no harvest at all. Yi Shiwen could only bring them back to the Bloodstone Mine first. The news spread as fast as it could. Not only were the people from the Sky-Bearing Fortress and the Flying Cloud Fortress shocked, but everyone in the vicinity was also shocked. No one had expected things to turn out this way. The Flying Cloud Castle was aggressively trying to snatch the Bloodstone Mine of Sky-Bearing Castle. At first, everyone had only one feeling when they heard the news: Sky-Bearing Castle was finished. It went without saying how important the Bloodstone Mine was to the Sky-Bearing Fortress. It was extremely important and could even be said to be its lifeline, its source. Without this Bloodstone Mine, the Sky-Bearing Fortress would no longer be able to stand on its own. Many people were also wondering if Sky-Bearing Castle was really going to be destroyed. Without the Bloodstone Mine, even if the people of Flying Cloud Castle did not attack for a while, Sky-Bearing Castle would not be able to hold on for long. It would naturally collapse. This was not the first time such a situation had happened. However, the news that came later completely shocked them. It could even be said that they were a little dumbfounded. A person called Deadly Young Master had appeared out of nowhere and killed 2 experts of Flying Cloud Castle in an instant. Moreover, they were 2 top-notch experts at the 9th level of the Pawang realm. Even though the people from the Soaring Cloud Castle were completely annihilated and no one knew the exact situation, everyone was clear that the strength of Mr. Deadly, who possessed such strength, was far beyond their imagination. A peerless expert slowly rose up. Chapter 2179. The name Young Master Killer spread throughout the entire region in a single night. Everyone knew that such a ruthless character had arrived. Even in the blood prison, the experts of the Pawang realm ninth heaven were still the minority among the minority. They could only be regarded as the existence of a phoenix feather and a unicorn horn. The fall of any one of them was regarded as a major event that countless people paid attention to. What's more, 2 of them had fallen in one go. This was truly a major event. The soaring cloud fortress was also regarded as a powerful force in the nearby regions. With 15 powerful experts of the Pawang realm ninth heaven guarding them, they had absolute confidence in facing any challenges. Whether it was the warriors of other clans, the omnipresent blood demons in the blood prison, or the blood demon tide, none of them posed a real threat to them. Unless there were experts of Dao confirmation level taking action, otherwise it would not be a problem. This time they had suffered a huge loss. 2 experts of the Pawang realm ninth heaven had fallen. In any case, it could be said that their vitality had been greatly damaged. What was even more terrifying was that these 2 peerless experts had been killed by young Master Lifestealer alone. It was as if he had not expended any effort at all. Although he did not know the exact details, the fact that Soaring Cloud Castle had not been able to send reinforcements in time was enough to tell that the battle had probably ended very quickly. From this, it could also prove how terrifying Yi Shiwen was. He could actually kill 2 experts of the Pawang realm ninth heaven in such a short period of time. However, as Yi Shiwen's strong performance in the sky-bearing fortress was dug out, all of this seemed to be very normal. The original 9th Elder of the sky-bearing fortress was also defeated by him as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. It could be said that it was almost effortless. From the looks of it, the matter of him casually taking care of the 2 experts was probably not a lie. Subsequently, even more shocking news came out. At that time, the 2 elders of the Soaring Cloud Fortress went on the expedition with a defective divine tool. Facing 2 experts of the Pawang realm ninth heaven with a defective divine tool, they could at least kill 3 to 4 experts of this level at the same time. One should know that there were only 9 experts in the sky-bearing fortress in total. It was impossible to send half of the people here to guard the place. This was because the sky-bearing fortress still needed people to guard it, and most of the time they still needed to cultivate. Therefore, the conquest operation this time could be said to be determined to succeed, with no possibility of failure. But the result was still like this, a failure. Everyone's evaluation of Yi Shiwen suddenly rose to a whole new level. This was not something that an ordinary Pawang 9th level expert could achieve. In most people's opinion, Yi Shiwen could even be compared to the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. He was originally the most tyrannical existence in this region. However, he had suddenly become the person that everyone couldn't afford to provoke. In order to defeat or even kill such an opponent, they would need at least 3 to 5 existences at the 9th heaven of the Pawang realm to guarantee a chance of victory. However, in this way, the number of top-notch experts in the Soaring Cloud Castle was almost at an advantage compared to the Sky-bearing Castle. They originally had 15 existences at the 9th heaven of the Pawang realm, but now only 13 were left. They had lost 2, and both of them were experts. This was a huge loss. It could even be said to be a blow to their vitality. They suddenly lost their overwhelming advantage against the Sky-bearing Castle. To the Sky-bearing Fortress, this was undoubtedly great news. They had always been under the threat of the Flying Cloud Fortress, and now they had gotten rid of some of that threat. Although it couldn't be said that they had reached a balance of power, but it was enough. Especially with a top-notch expert like Yi Shiwen keeping watch. Their safety had undoubtedly been greatly guaranteed. Facing such a powerful existence who could easily kill more than 2 experts, the Flying Cloud Castle unexpectedly dealt with it coldly. They did not plan to retaliate right from the start. After all, this matter was fundamentally because they had invaded the bloodstone mine of the Sky-bearing Castle. This kind of behavior was very normal in the blood prison. However, it would be too embarrassing if they refused to let go because of this matter. The most important thing was that they weren't completely sure that they could deal with Yi Shiwen. After all, even the divine tool in their hands had failed. In fact, they almost couldn't even return the 8-sex spherical heaven flag. This incident had taught them a great lesson. Therefore, although such an incident had happened, the sky-bearing castle trusted Yi Shiwen very much. At the very least, he could stop the Flying Cloud Castle's surprise attack by himself. This was also a fact. Yi Shiwen did not care about the many comments from the outside world. For him, the most important thing at present was to condense the Saber Tao incarnation. As long as he could condense the Saber Tao incarnation, his strength would undergo an earth-shaking change. No one below the mythical level would be a match for him, and he would no longer have anything to fear. This was more important than anything else. As long as he had such powerful strength, all problems would be easily solved. After he returned, he directly hid in the Bloodstone Mine. He wanted to use the energy of the Bloodstone Mine to condense his third martial Tao incarnation. This was a crucial step for him. It was far more than just increasing his combat power. The condensation of each martial Tao incarnation required an unimaginable understanding of martial arts to be possible. Similarly, the addition of each martial Tao incarnation was much more difficult than the original. The demand for martial arts understanding would also increase exponentially. Only in this way could it be possible to conduct a crazy experiment. It was something that ordinary people did not even dare to think about. It was because his realm was too far apart. There was still a long way to go before he reached the peak of the mythical level. He might not be able to achieve it in a short period of time. However, time waits for no man. Although the plan was a little crazy in Yi Shiwen's heart, it was a helpless choice. Once it was achieved, his strength would also be unprecedented. This was also the greatest benefit of being stationed in the Bloodstone Mine. They could use the Bloodstone Origin Stones in the mine to cultivate. The Bloodstone Origin Stones in the mine had not been refined to remove impurities, so it was difficult to directly absorb them. The process was very troublesome. Therefore, in the eyes of the people from the sky-bearing castle, even if Yi Shiwen absorbed the bloodstones in the mine, he would not be able to absorb much. After all, everyone came here like this. Even if there was a little more than usual, it would not be much. However, they did not know that Yi Shiwen's great transformation technique was far more terrifying than they imagined. He sat cross-legged in the depths of the Bloodstone Mine. After the Flying Cloud Castle's raid, the people from the sky-bearing castle who were mining did not dare to disturb him. This was also convenient for Yi Shiwen to do things. He sat cross-legged and began to use the great transformation technique after arranging a formation. Rumble! The surrounding Bloodstone Mine was rumbling and shaking. Countless blood qi directly turned into a long river of blood qi under the guidance of Yi Shiwen's great transformation technique. It flowed into Yi Shiwen's body. It did not even need to go through any purification and tempering. The overbearingness of the great transformation technique could be seen. More and more blood qi flowed into his body. It only passed through his body once before all of it rushed into the mysterious space. Although his talent was considered extraordinary now, it would take at least hundreds of years to completely comprehend Blade Tao and condense an incarnation without the help of the mysterious space. It might even take far more than that. Therefore, the most important thing was to borrow the powerful deduction ability of the mysterious space. With the help of an entire bloodstone mine, Yi Shiwen naturally had no scruples when he deduced. In his mind, countless principles, rules, and secrets of the Blade Way were continuously deduced. Then, they turned into runes and poured into Yi Shiwen's mind. This made his understanding of the Blade Way improve at an astonishing speed. Around his body, streaks of blade qi splashed out and formed a huge Blade Tao domain around him. It was expanding in all directions. His blade qi also became sharper and sharper, as if it was going to completely shatter the world. The mythical masters who were mining outside did not know what was happening inside, but they did not dare to approach at all. Through the previous events, it had completely told them that the strength that Yi Shiwen possessed was far beyond what they could contend with. They did not even dare to ask. Fortunately, the area that Yi Shiwen was in was the deepest part of the Bloodstone mine. Yi Shiwen had even opened up a part of it, so it did not affect them from mining outside. In fact, it did not make any difference. Time passed day by day in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed. The entire sky-bearing fortress seemed to be in a peaceful time, passing day by day. Boom! Suddenly, a huge roar came from above the Bloodstone mine. A terrifying force fell like a ball of thunder, directly smashing the Bloodstone mine and causing it to rumble like an earthquake. From today onwards, this Bloodstone mine belongs to the Soaring Cloud Fortress. All of you surrender, or you will die. A stern voice came down from the sky. People of the Soaring Cloud Fortress, how dare you be so presumptuous here? Aren't you afraid of death? After a loud shout, the old butler flew out from his closed-door training. Many figures flew out, and all of them were the many masters of the sky-bearing fortress stationed here. The old butler looked up, and his face suddenly turned ugly. In the void, he saw hundreds of figures floating in the void, and among them, there were 5 tyrannical masters of the Pawang realm 9th level. Their auras were tyrannical, and they completely released their power. Chapter 2180. 5 experts at the peak of Pawang realm. If it was in the past, they would not only be drenched in cold sweat, they might even kneel down. Any one of them could wipe out the entire Bloodstone mine. With such a lineup, there was no other choice but to ask for reinforcements from the sky-bearing castle. Fortunately, they were in the Bloodstone mine this time, so there was no lack of means to contact the outside world. If they were forced, they could even pay a price to use the directional transmission matrix. Most importantly, there was an extremely powerful Yi Shiwen in the Bloodstone mine. If they had not personally witnessed Yi Shiwen's combat power, they would not believe that someone could be so tyrannical. It could be said that Yi Shiwen had defeated the 2 experts with ease. With Yi Shiwen in charge, they were undoubtedly more confident. As long as they delayed for a little time, they would naturally be fine according to their past experiences. However, the 5 experts at the peak of Pawang realm still made him feel like he had fallen into an ice cave. In any case, this was not a powerful force that he could fight against. However, he was confident and naturally had no fear. He squinted his eyes and looked at the 5 incomparably powerful figures floating in the void. He said, "Do you want to die? Don't you know that the deadly young master is guarding here?" "Humph, I want to see who this deadly young master is. Don't think that you will get lucky. The reinforcements from the sky-bearing castle that you have high hopes for will not come. Now, Terman can't even take care of himself. I will give you a chance. If you are willing to surrender, we can spare your lives. We also need people to mine for us. However, if you resist, then don't blame us for being rude." At this moment, among the 5 experts at the pinnacle of the Pawang realm, the elder who was the leader spoke. "Even the 2nd elder of the Flying Cloud Castle has come. You are really ambitious." The old butler recognized the origin of this elder at a glance. He was the 2nd elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. His strength was also extremely tyrannical. Compared to the great elder, the only difference was that he did not have a damaged divine tool. Hearing this, many people from the sky-bearing castle were suddenly shaken. Indeed, if the Flying Cloud Castle was not fully prepared, they would not take the initiative to attack the Bloodstone mine. If it was just a simple attack by 5 experts, it would completely alarm the sky-bearing castle. However, the people from the sky-bearing fortress had yet to arrive. Could something have really happened? Their relationship with the sky-brokenness fortress was one of mutual dependence. They were not nurtured by the sky-brokenness fortress, and they had never thought of fighting to the death for the sky-brokenness fortress. Cut the crap. I'll give you 3 seconds. If you don't surrender, you'll die. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle said coldly. 3. Everyone, don't be bewitched by him. He's lying to us. 2. 1. Since you refuse to surrender, I will send you to hell. The second elder of Soaring Cloud Castle sneered. The expressions of the people from the sky-bearing castle changed drastically. None of them wanted to die for the sky-bearing castle. At this moment, a cold snort was heard from within. I'd like to see who's going to hell. A cold voice came from within the Bloodstone mine. Everyone's faces suddenly revealed an expression of surprise and joy. This voice was definitely Yi Shiwen's. They would never forget this voice. To them, this voice was like the sound of heaven, and it had saved them from this endless suffering. Trying to act mysterious. You're that young Master Deadly, right? I'd like to see just how strong you are. The second elder of the Soaring Cloud Fortress could immediately tell that the voice belonged to the 9th elder of the Sky-bearing Fortress, young Master Lifestealer, whose name had shaken the region recently. It would have been fine if it was anyone else, but the deadly young master's reputation was built on the corpses of the Flying Cloud Castle. Even a powerful force like the Flying Cloud Castle would feel extremely distressed at the loss of 2 Pawang Realm experts and dozens of Pawang Realm experts. Therefore, the entire sky-bearing fortress regarded Yi Shiwen as a pillar that supported the sky. However, the entire Flying Cloud Castle regarded Yi Shiwen as an enemy. They could not wait to tear him into pieces to vent their anger. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle immediately conjured a monstrous giant hand and pressed it down abruptly. Boom! The sky suddenly collapsed. Everything collapsed in an instant. He was like an ancient demon god that created a gap in the sky and earth. Countless lightning powers circled around and formed a long river that rushed down. He wanted to create a huge crack in the Bloodstone mine. In any case, these ores were still there. It didn't matter how they were destroyed. What kind of scene was this? The void collapsed from the inside as countless lightning powers poured in. The attainment of the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle in the power of lightning was indeed tyrannical. So strong. How can there be such tyrannical power? The people of the sky-bearing fortress were completely pale when they saw this scene. They were also in the myth realm, but they were far inferior to the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. However, just when everyone thought that the lightning powers were about to wreak havoc, they saw a huge vortex appear on the Bloodstone mine. A terrifying energy constantly rotated in the entire vortex. The power of thunder that surged in was completely absorbed by the huge whirlpool. It couldn't cause any damage to the entire Bloodstone mine at all. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle couldn't help but look unsightly. Yi Shiwen's strength had far exceeded his initial expectations. In that battle, the people of the Flying Cloud Castle had been completely annihilated, and the people of the sky-bearing castle couldn't possibly go around talking nonsense. Therefore, the outcome of that battle was still a mystery. No one knew how strong Yi Shiwen was. However, to be on the safe side, they had come out in full force this time. They were divided into 2 teams. For them, 5 experts of the 9th level of Pawang Realm were enough to sweep away any strong enemy. No one would be surprised. Come out if you have the guts, one of the elders of the Flying Cloud Castle shouted. As you wish. In an instant, everyone could only see a bolt of lightning breaking through the void. Then, this bolt of lightning turned into a terrifying spear and instantly blasted towards the elder from the Flying Cloud Fortress. Bang! The long spear directly pierced through the elder of the Flying Cloud Castle and caused a shocking explosion. The sky and earth changed color, and the elder exploded on the spot. An expert of the 9th level of Pawang Realm had fallen. All of this happened too quickly. It was so fast that no one could react. With just one move, a master of the 9th level of Pawang Realm was blasted to death. When the lightning dissipated, Yi Shiwen's figure slowly appeared. He was holding a long spear that was condensed from lightning in his hand. Faintly, there was the roar of a fierce beast coming from it. The complexion of the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle suddenly changed. Not only because Yi Shiwen had easily defeated an expert of the Paong Realm 9th level, but more importantly, he clearly felt a familiar feeling from the long spear in Yi Shiwen's hand, and his own power of thunder. In other words, the person in front of him had used his martial power to temper his long spear. It seems that the power is not bad. I have been nourishing this long spear for the past few years. However, there is still one last step left. Now, thanks to your help, the Thunder Spear has been completed. Yi Shiwen grinned. The Thunder Spear in his hand was naturally refined with the horn of the giant Thunder Beast as the core. The giant Thunder Beast was born to be the king of controlling thunder and lightning. It was also known as the God of Thunder. For the giant Thunder Beast, the essence of its entire body was also concentrated in the thunder horn of the giant Thunder Beast. With this as the core, he managed to forge the lightning spear. All these years, he had been nourishing it with the power of lightning in his tempest wings. With just one final step, he had borrowed the power of the Flying Cloud Castle's second elder to complete the forging. Although the giant Thunder Beast was born to be the king of controlling thunder and lightning, the giant Thunder Beast back then was much weaker than the current second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. His understanding of the power of thunder was also weaker. He understood at a glance that the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle in front of him was not weak. He was at the peak of the Myth Realm and was only half a step away from entering the Tao Validation Realm. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He didn't expect that not only did he fail to injure Yi Shiwen, but Yi Shiwen even took advantage of this opportunity to refine a powerful pseudo-divine tool. Moreover, Yi Shiwen even used this Thunder Spear to kill a master of the Paong Realm 9th level right in front of him. Everyone finally reacted at this time. Killing an expert at the 9th level of the Paong Realm in one move was much more tyrannical than half a year ago. F***ck me. Is this young Master Death Seeker even human? He is so strong. Compared to 2 years ago, he is many times more tyrannical. 2 years ago, it seemed like he would have to spend some effort to fight. Now, it seems like it is almost effortless. Fortunately, we did not surrender. Otherwise, we would be on the wrong side now. Many people of the Sky-bearing Castle were very glad that they did not choose the wrong side. Otherwise, they would really be crying at this time. Good, just because of this sentence, I will let you die without a burial place. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. A terrifying power was surging all over his body. A powerful force instantly swept out and turned into monstrous thunder. It swept out like an ocean. Stupid, you still don't know how strong I am. Chapter 2181. Hearing this, the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle went completely crazy. He felt as if Yi Shiwen had casually forced him into a dead end. Normally, a powerhouse like him would not be affected by any stimulation. However, Yi Shiwen's display of strength was too shocking. A master of Paong Realm 9th level did not even have the strength to fight back. It could be said that he was killed in an instant. Good. Ever since I became a mythological realm expert, I have never seen someone as arrogant as you. Don't think that you are something great just because you have some strength. Today, I have met someone even more arrogant than you. Young Master Deadly, haha, I want to see whose life you are going to take and how capable you are. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was completely enraged. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "What's the matter? What nonsense do you want? If you dare to fight, then fight. I will take the life of anyone who stands in my way. It's that simple." Boom. In an instant, heaven and earth seemed to have collapsed. The power of thunder in the body of the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle rushed out. Then, in an instant, he blasted towards Yi Shiwen. Countless power of thunder condensed all of a sudden like countless thunder dragons, and then pounced towards Yi Shiwen. Who do you think you are? Just by yourself? Yi Shiwen sneered. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and then directly transformed into the power of the red dust, and blasted out. The power of the red dust rolled up like ribbons, dancing in the air. Yi Shiwen was the only venerable emperor in the world, the venerable emperor of the human race. This was the human Tao fist. Originally, he had to be careful to avoid being discovered by Yao Xingqing and Jing Tianlei. But now, he was no longer afraid. Unless a Tao-confirming expert appeared, they would not be able to cause any harm to him. The power of thunder transformed into the thunder algae, and was instantly smashed by Yi Shiwen's terrifying fist power. Then, Yi Shiwen's fist carried the power of the mortal world, and directly blasted towards the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle with irresistible force. Bang! The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle conjured a big lightning hand at the critical moment. He grabbed it and blocked Yi Shiwen's punch. Countless forces were strangling each other. This was the confrontation of the tyrannical strength that belonged to the pinnacle of the Paong realm. In his lightning hand, countless laws of thunder condensed into talismans, constantly sweeping across the surface, and many extremely tyrannical ancient characters were also constantly appearing in it. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle indeed had peerless combat power, enough to sweep through the world. If he was in the Sky-bearing Castle, he would probably be more than qualified to be the Great Elder. Ninth Elder, be careful. That's his Luai's hand. Legend has it that when the Luai's hand is cultivated to the extreme, it's equivalent to the Thunder God's hand. Each and every one of his moves possesses great power. You must be careful. The old butler couldn't help but remind Yi Shiwen. At this time, seeing that Yi Shiwen's offensive was actually blocked, he couldn't help but feel anxious in his heart. All of their hopes were pinned on Yi Shiwen. After all, if it wasn't for Yi Shiwen, it was almost inevitable that they would all be killed. One must know that the Flying Cloud Castle, which had lost a Paong 9th level expert, would probably not let these guys stay. They were already extremely angry. How powerful is the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle? Legend has it that he has cultivated to the true pinnacle. Even the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle could only truly suppress him with the help of a defective divine tool. Otherwise, it's hard to say who could become the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. But our 9th elder isn't simple either. We've seen quite a number of experts at the 9th heaven of the Paong realm killed. I've never seen or heard of such strength. Many people were suddenly in a dilemma. Whether it was the people of the Sky-bearing Castle or the Flying Cloud Castle, it seemed that at this time, no one had the confidence to win. Humph, deadly child, I think you're just SOSO. At this time, the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle suddenly felt confident after blocking Yi Shiwen's punch. In his heart, he thought that he had already figured out Yi Shiwen's strength. Since Yi Shiwen couldn't do anything to him, he naturally felt relieved. In his thunder lock hand, countless thunder laws were wandering, constantly erupting with amazing power. A powerful torrent blasted towards Yi Shiwen. This is your so-called thunder lock hand? I don't think it's that great. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but sneer. Suddenly, he directly grabbed the thunder spear with his other hand and suddenly stabbed it fiercely into the thunder lock hand. Boom! A huge hole was blasted in the hand of Luai's all of a sudden, and a terrifying energy storm was constantly surging in this huge hand of Luai's, wreaking havoc. In just an instant, the thunder lock hand that the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was proud of was broken by Yi Shiwen. The thunder spear could even match the power of some defective divine tools. In fact, whether it was a pseudo-divine tool or a defective divine tool, it was still a divine tool. Even the materials used to refine some pseudo-divine tools were even better than many divine tools. However, the reason why they could only be regarded as pseudo-divine tools was that they had not been tempered by the laws of the real gods. Only the real gods could engrave the traces of their own way on the pseudo-divine tools, interweave the truth, and then promote the pseudo-divine tool to a divine tool. This was the common method used by many people. The thunder spear used the thunder horn of the thunder behemoth. At that time, even Yi Shiwen couldn't directly interrupt it. He just pulled it out from the head of the thunder behemoth. One could imagine how hard and powerful it was. This strike pierced through the heavens and earth, causing an endless amount of energy to spread out. An incomparably powerful force started wreaking havoc in the void. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle only felt his whole body trembling. It could be said that his arm was almost paralyzed. He knew that this was caused by the power of thunder contained in the thunder spear. This was a situation that had never happened before. He himself had a very deep understanding of the power of thunder laws. It could be said that his understanding of the way of thunder had reached a shocking level. Before this, he had never really been hurt by thunder. From this, one could imagine how tyrannical the thunder spear was. "Humph, my thunder lock hand can't be so easily dealt with," he roared. Suddenly, he blasted out countless thunder power. Under his control, a lot of thunder power condensed into an incomparably powerful force. Then, it directly turned into countless long rivers of talismans. In an instant, it eliminated the power of Yi Shiwen's fist. Then, like a wave, it swallowed Yi Shiwen's thunder spear. Yi Shiwen seemed to be shocked. He suddenly let go of the thunder spear and jumped away. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle took advantage of this opportunity to burst out an incomparably powerful attack. He directly blasted out a torrent of thunder. "Take this, 9 heavens thunderclap!" At this moment, in the world, Wu Shu's power of thunder was mobilized along with the qi in his body. It formed a huge rotating thunder vortex. During the whole process, his whole body seemed to be integrated into the thunder. It was extremely mysterious. This was an ancient inheritance that he had obtained. This set of martial arts indeed had earth-shattering power. Countless thunder laws were blasted out all at once, forming a vast long river. A few years of space, it directly fell towards Yi Shiwen. It wanted to scratch Yi Shiwen to death. Ha ha ha, Yi Shiwen is going to die now. The people of the Flying Cloud Castle finally revealed a savage smile on their faces. They had been waiting for this day. Yi Shiwen would not be able to survive this time. If he wants to go against the second elder, his strength is still far from enough. However, his strength is so strong. He must have had a fortuitous encounter. If we can get our hands on him, our strength will undoubtedly increase greatly. At this time, on the side of the Flying Cloud Castle, the eyes of the remaining 3 masters of the Paong realm at the 9th level flashed brightly. No one could really ignore Yi Shiwen's strong performance. With the cultivation of the Paong realm at the 7th level, he could actually burst out such amazing combat power. This in itself had already explained everything. At this moment, everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was going to lose. "Humph, it turns out that you are just SOSO. I was just going easy on you just now. I wanted to see what other tricks you could play. Now it seems that you are just SOSO. I am really disappointed." Yi Shiwen sneered. He did not have the slightest look of frustration. As he spoke, the power of the 5 elements suddenly condensed on Yi Shiwen's body, forming an incomparably huge 5 elements formation. The 5 Emperor's battle armor appeared from Yi Shiwen's body. Boom! Yi Shiwen's strength instantly skyrocketed to another level, completely reaching the combat power of the peak of the myth realm. This power of the 5 elements. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle suddenly thought of something. "You are not the deadly child. You are Yi Shiwen. You are actually the wanted Yi Shiwen." He suddenly remembered that someone came from the deity Abyss and asked them to find a person named Yi Shiwen. And this person had a martial technique that could drive the power of the 5 elements. He was wondering why there was suddenly such a master nearby, but it turned out to be the wanted Yi Shiwen. Haha, yes, it is me. But wanted? With the strength of Yao Xingqing and the others, they are not qualified to put me on the wanted list. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly and directly changed back to his original form. He no longer had the intention to hide. Even if they don't come looking for me, I will go looking for them. Chapter 2182. In the beginning, Yi Shiwen was indeed afraid of them, so he had to hide his identity. However, there was no need to do so now. He even wanted to find Yao Xingqing and the others in the blood prison and kill them to completely eliminate any future troubles. It was just that Yao Xingqing and the others had profound skills. They were all cultivating in the depths of the blood prison. Compared to the sky-bearing castle and the flying cloud castle, it was closer to the center of the blood prison. There were more threats there. It could be said that there were unimaginably powerful existences operating there. If one did not have the strength of the Paong realm 9th level, he could only be a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. The old butler was stunned. He also realized that Yao Xingqing's arrest warrant was not only sent to the Flying Cloud Castle, but also to the Sky-Bearing Castle. The Sky-Bearing Castle was also paying attention to Yi Shiwen. Although Yao Xingqing was only at the Paong realm 9th level, he was actually different from them. Yao Xingqing had cultivated to the peak of the Paong realm 9th level at a young age, and he was still in the stage of cultivating in the deity transformation abyss. There was a great possibility that he could enter the Dao validation in the future. The benefits of befriending such a future Dao-confirming expert could be imagined for their future. It was just that the wanted order had been issued for a few years, but there were no clues. They didn't know where Yi Shiwen had gone. Therefore, everyone's enthusiasm gradually disappeared. However, they never expected that Yi Shiwen would end up hiding here in the end. Hiding here, no one thought that if Yi Shiwen didn't want to hide now, no one would be able to find him. During this time, when Yi Shiwen was hiding as the deadly young master, the martial arts he displayed were not the slightest bit similar to the legendary Yi Shiwen. This was why no one suspected Yi Shiwen even though he was a newcomer. Judging from the various martial arts that he had displayed, he was not any worse than the legendary Yi Shiwen. Naturally, it should be impossible for him to be the legendary Yi Shiwen. However, he did not expect that this seemingly impossible person turned out to be Yi Shiwen. However, such a dilemma only lasted for a moment. Although the deadly young master was Yi Shiwen was still their 9th elder. It was true that Yao Xingqing was powerful. According to the legends, it was difficult to find a worthy opponent among the mythical peak experts. However, was Yi Shiwen inferior? Slaughtering the mythical peak was as easy as slaughtering chickens and dogs. Moreover, a battle of this level wasn't something they could intervene in. The wisest thing for them to do was to stay out of it. While they were lost in their thoughts, Yi Shiwen had already made his move. Since he had already restored his identity, there was nothing to worry about. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched directly. Human Dao Fist. Boom. Under Yi Shiwen's control, the human Dao Fist transformed into a surging mortal world. All the power condensed together as if countless people were speaking at the same time. The surging mortal world was condensed from the thoughts of these countless people. In an instant, this terrifying thought accompanied by a powerful fist force directly blasted towards Yi Shiwen. In a sense, these worldly wills were even more dreadful than Yi Shiwen's terrifying fist power. They had affected the divine thoughts of the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was trembling all over. He was affected by Yi Shiwen's human Dao Fist and couldn't suppress it at all. At this moment, he also felt a huge threat. Ever since he entered the Paong Peak realm, he hadn't felt threatened by others for many years. However, He felt such a terrifying threat from Yi Shiwen again. Yi Shiwen, you're dead. How dare you show up here? Do you know how long Yao Xingqing and Jing Tianlei have been searching for you? It won't be long before they all come together. When that time comes, it will be your death. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle suppressed his trembling body and roared loudly. If they dare to come, then I'll kill them all. Yi Shiwen laughed strangely and didn't care at all. In front of Yi Shiwen, the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle went completely crazy. He displayed the hand of Thunder Marsh. Countless thunderbolts began to burn crazily. Then, they turned into countless laws and rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Boom! His hand of blue eyes directly attracted the clouds between heaven and earth and condensed them into layers of clouds. In an instant, countless crackling sounds were guided down by him and strengthened the hand of blue eyes. He stood in the center of these countless thunderbolts like a powerful thunder god. Everything would be swept away by the thunderbolt. Boom! The two sides collided again. Yi Shiwen actually couldn't do anything to the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, who had already burned his own life force. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, who was forced to a corner, began to burn his own life force. He also knew that Yi Shiwen wouldn't let them go easily. If he couldn't defeat Yi Shiwen, they would also die. At this time, he couldn't care so much anymore. You do have some skills, but this is the end. Do you think it's so easy to swallow my things? Come out. Yi Shiwen grabbed the void with his big hand. In the void, there was a violent fluctuation. All of a sudden, the right hand of the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle seemed to be swept up by countless forces from within. In an instant, it directly exploded. Inside, the spear of thunder flew out and instantly flew back into Yi Shiwen's hand. You? The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was severely injured in an instant. His face was extremely ugly. At this time, how could he not understand that snatching the Spear of Thunder from before should be Yi Shiwen's scheme? He was originally very excited, thinking that he could snatch a powerful pseudo-divine tool. This was not easy to obtain. Every powerful pseudo-divine tool had the qualification to be promoted to a divine tool. It's time to end this. I want to see what kind of conspiracy the Flying Cloud Castle has prepared. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and directly integrated with the fist incarnation. His strength suddenly increased by another level. Seeing that Yi Shiwen's strength had increased by another level, everyone in the Flying Cloud Fortress was in despair. Yi Shiwen was already so difficult to deal with now. If he merged with another martial arts incarnation, it was simply unimaginable how tyrannical his strength would be. Go, let's join forces. If we don't join forces, I'm afraid none of us will be able to leave today. The remaining 3 experts at the peak of the myth realm said fiercely. At this time, they had no other choice. Join forces? Have you won? Yi Shiwen could not help but sneer. Suddenly, he attacked in an instant. The void was suddenly torn by him. A fist blasted out from the void. There was no smoke or fire. There was not even the slightest sign. The fist directly hit the chest of the expert at the peak of the myth realm. Ah! This expert at the peak of the myth realm did not even have time to scream. He was directly blown up by Yi Shiwen's fist. His flesh and blood were all grabbed by Yi Shiwen. At this time, everyone only reacted. They did not know when Yi Shiwen attacked again. Moreover, his speed was faster than before. It was extremely fast. He did not give them any chance to react at all. Damn it, I'll kill you! The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle saw that another person had been killed in front of him. He immediately went crazy. He drove countless thunder dragons across the vast sky and pounced towards Yi Shiwen fiercely. Yi Shiwen didn't know what to do. You talk too much. Yi Shiwen did not even look at him. He suddenly grabbed with one hand and turned it into a big golden hand. Then, it condensed into a claw. Soul-crushing blood claw. 5 bloody cracks grew bigger and bigger. It directly hit the body of the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. Rip! His body was torn into strips like a piece of cloth. Blood splashed out and bone fragments swirled in the air. He was not Yi Shiwen's opponent at all. Before Yi Shiwen's combat power reached its peak, he could still fight with Yi Shiwen. However, after fusing with the martial arts incarnation, Yi Shiwen's strength had already reached another peak. It was no longer the same as before. After the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was killed by Yi Shiwen, the remaining two masters of the Paong realm finally felt fear. They looked at Yi Shiwen in front of them with fear in their eyes. It was as if they were looking at a monster. He was not a human at all, but a legendary monster. They finally understood that they could not fight against the person in front of them. Almost immediately, they reacted and fled in all directions. The reason why they fled in all directions was because when the tree fell, the monkeys would scatter. They were not the only ones who fled. The ordinary myth elites also screamed in pain and fled. But how could Yi Shiwen let them escape? Shaking mountain seal. Inverting the sea seal. Overturning the sky seal. 3 seals in one. He quickly clenched his fist and discovered that the power of countless laws in the void began to revolve. In an instant, 3 terrifying seals were condensed. These 3 incomparably powerful seals fused together in an instant, displaying a terrifying might that completely shattered the vault of the sky. Crash! The 3 seals in one fell completely. It was as if an incomparably huge mountain had crushed down. It was so huge that it covered the entire mountain. Boom! Although these people escaped very quickly, how could they compare with Yi Shiwen's speed? Almost without any suspense, they were crushed by Yi Shiwen's 3 seals in one. At this time, the masters of the sky-bearing castle were completely dumbfounded. They seemed to have become completely numb. They watched helplessly as Yi Shiwen completely slaughtered these top masters. There was a bit of fear in their eyes as they looked at Yi Shiwen. But Yi Shiwen did not care about what they were thinking. He looked directly at the old butler and said, "Up until now, the sky-bearing castle has not arrived for a long time. It seems that something has happened. Let's go back immediately." Chapter 2183. Inside the Bloodstone Mine, there was a two-way space channel between the sky-bearing fortress and the Bloodstone Mine. However, this formation would not be activated easily. Once it was activated, it would require the consumption of tens of thousands of bloodstones. This was because in the blood prison, the rules of space were even stricter. It was 100 times, or even 1,000 times more difficult to teleport than in the outside world. Normally, it would not be activated unless there was a major event. However, no one would care about this rule at this time. However, Yi Shiwen did not bring everyone along. He only brought the old butler and activated the teleportation formation on the spot. After a period of darkness, they appeared in the sky-bearing fortress. Just as they stabilized their footing, countless shouts traveled into their ears from afar. As far as the eye could see, countless blood demons were attacking the sky-bearing fortress in a frenzy. "Hiss, it's the blood demon tide." The old butler's expression suddenly changed. He thought that the Bloodstone Mine was dangerous enough. However, it was nothing compared to the blood demon tide. In the blood prison, the blood demon tide was not rare. The old butler had seen it many times over the years. However, it was rare to see one of such a large scale. They might as well just stay in the Bloodstone Mine. As far as the eye could see, the army of blood demons was everywhere within thousands of li. There was no telling how many of them there were. Once their defense was breached by the blood demons, not a single one of them would be able to escape. On the contrary, Yi Shiwen had been in the blood prison for almost 5 years, but this was the first time he had seen the famous blood demon tide. Suddenly, he understood why everyone's expression changed at the mention of the blood demon tide. The horrifying scene of the blood demon tide that had spread for thousands of miles was enough to scare an ordinary person to death, let alone the others. The roars of countless blood demons were sharp and unpleasant. All of them were transmitted into the sky-bearing fortress, covering all other sounds. No one could hear what the others were shouting. Fortunately, everyone could still communicate with their divine thoughts. Otherwise, there was no way they could communicate in such a noisy situation. Go and tell the other elders about the bloodstone mine. I'll go and take a look first. Yi Shiwen did not hesitate. He took a step forward. When he reappeared, he was already on the city wall of the sky-bearing fortress. At this moment, the blood demons had completely surrounded the sky-bearing fortress. There were no blind spots in the sky or on the ground. Countless spell formations that had been buried since who knew when all came to life. They spurted out torrents of energy that swept into the horde of blood demons. Many blood demons could not dodge in time and were directly vaporized by the torrents of energy. However, it was of little use at all. There were just too many blood demons. Although there were quite a number of martial artists, they paled in comparison to the blood demons that occupied the entire blood prison. They were not on the same level at all. Hundreds and thousands of blood demons were swept to death every moment. The agony they felt before their deaths made their already hideous expressions even more hideous. At the same time, the array formations of the sky-bearing fortress were visibly shattering one by one. Every time an array formation shattered, the sky-bearing fortress martialists hiding inside would be instantly devoured by countless blood demons. Not even a single bone was left. Although they were all mythological experts, they did not have much of an advantage when faced with the terrifying tide of demons. They struggled for a moment and were devoured by the demons. Many mythical experts of the sky-bearing fortress could not help but turn pale when they saw this scene. They were afraid that the blood demons would rush in front of them and devour them in the next second. Damn it, why are there so many blood demons? Don't tell me they really broke through the entire sky-bearing fortress. That's very possible. It's not like the sky-bearing fortress has never been breached by a blood demon tide in history. There was a particularly large blood demon tide that broke through the sky-bearing fortress. At that time, all the martial artists were devoured by the blood demons. Not only the sky-bearing fortress, but many other fortresses like the Flying Cloud Fortress were also breached by the blood demons. It was said that a powerful Dao confirmation-level blood demon personally attacked that time. That was why those fortresses were so vulnerable. However, this time, even if it's not that terrifying, I'm afraid we're still in danger. What about our transmission array? Are they all occupied by those elders? There's no other way. We've already tried it. The array has been completely blocked from the outside. We can only enter, but not exit. It's impossible for us to escape. Damn it, even if I have to die, I'll drag these beasts to hell with me. I won't let them have it easy. When they heard that the teleportation array could no longer be used, everyone's faces turned ashen. Then, they looked as if they were united against a common enemy. They had been forced into a dead end. Apart from fighting to the death, they had no other choice. They could only fight with their backs against the wall. It was impossible for them to surrender without putting up a fight. Boom! 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 A series of terrifying explosions came from the void. A tyrannical expert had made his move. It was a short and stout figure. Yi Shiwen fixed his eyes on him and saw that he was the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. This area was probably the area he was responsible for defending. He would take action once the blood demons were in danger of the sky-bearing castle's formation. After mitigating this wave of attacks, his face was a little pale. He had obviously overexerted himself. From the beginning until now, danger would appear almost every once in a while. Even he had to take action frequently, which led to the rapid consumption of his real elemental energy. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, he was already next to Yi Shiwen. He stared at the blood demon tide in the sky and said, "Old Jiu, he already told me. So you're the famous Yi Shiwen." Obviously, He had already heard about Yi Shiwen's identity from the old butler, but he was not very concerned. Ha ha, someone who can make Yao Xingqing and Jing Tianlei so nervous is indeed not a simple person. When I first saw you, I knew that you were not an ordinary person, but I didn't expect you to be so powerful. I think you must be a genius nurtured by the deification abyss. Unfortunately, I was also 1,000 years ago, but I was already at the peak of the mythical realm a few hundred years ago. Now, after another few hundred years, I'm still the same. Seeing Yi Shiwen's surprised expression, the second elder of the sky-bearing castle spoke the truth. He could not help but smile and said, "You're probably new here, so you don't know. Trash like us were once the genius nurtured by the deification abyss. Unfortunately, I couldn't break into the realm of Tao validation in the end. Now, I can only hang around in this blood prison and bear all kinds of heavy exploitation by the deification abyss every year. Isn't it because it's easy to prove one's Tao here?" Yi Shiwen was a little stunned. He was a little puzzled at first. Where did these experts of the mythical realm come from? All of them came from the outside. It didn't seem very reasonable. However, after hearing what the second elder of the sky-bearing castle said, everything seemed to be clear. Most of the people here were probably those who failed in the genius seed selection. It was just that they failed. However, they were obviously not willing to give up and wanted to fight for the last time. They would stay here for hundreds of years, thousands of years, or even thousands of years. In the outside world, they were the masters of the world who could summon the wind and summon the rain. Here, they were just ordinary people. Even so, they were willing to do it. They only had one goal, and that was to prove one's Tao. You're more powerful than you were 2 years ago. Originally, I could understand why you hid your identity. Now that you've announced your identity, you obviously have the confidence to fight against Yao Xingqing. The second elder of the sky-bearing castle had already analyzed some basic things in an instant. Even if he did not have much information before, it could be seen that he was definitely not as simple as he looked. He was also a person with the heart of 7 orifices. However, it's a pity that you will probably die here today. If you didn't come back, you might have been able to escape. However, now that you've come back, you won't be able to go back. The blood demon tide this time is too huge and too strange. There were no signs at all. I originally suspected that there was something fishy about it. I also heard it just now. Now, I'm sure that it must be related to the Flying Cloud Castle. In the blood prison, although the blood demon tide happened from time to time, every blood demon tide had a reason, and it was usually caused by the change of the blood chi in the heaven and earth. It was impossible for the blood demon tide to suddenly burst out without any warning. Ha ha, the place that can bury me hasn't appeared yet. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. His eyes were firm and full of confidence. He had a kind of invincible demeanor, as if nothing could stump him. At this time, a powerful blood demon tide rushed over again. Before the second elder of the sky-bearing castle could make a move, Yi Shiwen took the lead. A thunder spear appeared in his hand, and he directly stabbed it. Countless thunder dragons appeared on the tip of the spear, smashing everything. The blood demon tide was instantly resolved by him. No matter what level the blood demon tide was, it could not escape from Yi Shiwen's spear. All of them were killed by Yi Shiwen's spear and turned into blood chi that filled the sky. Yi Shiwen absorbed them into his body with the art of martial arts conversion. The martial arts consumed in the previous attack were directly replenished. In addition, the Phoenix regeneration technique was constantly replenishing his chi, allowing him to maintain his peak state at any time. It was far from enough to kill him by relying on the number of people. Good, old 9, what a powerful martial instrument. However, your spear technique is just SOSO. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle said with a smile. He immediately pointed out the fact that Yi Shiwen's cultivation in spear techniques was SOSO. Yi Shiwen was not annoyed. This was a fact in itself. He was not specialized in this aspect. Old Nine, let me ask you. Do you want to be the boss of the Sky-bearing Castle? Although the Sky-bearing Castle is not big, if you plan to dominate the Blood Prison, it can also be regarded as a foundation. Chapter 2184. Old Nine, let me ask you, do you want to be the boss of our Sky-bearing Fortress? Although our Sky-bearing Fortress isn't big, it can be considered as a foundation if you plan to dominate the Blood Prison. The second elder of Sky-bearing Fortress looked at Yi Shiwen and said with a serious expression. Yi Shiwen was also stunned because he had never thought about this before. For him, this matter wasn't even considered as something that needed to be considered. To him, Sky-bearing Fortress was just a place to hide his identity and find a quiet place to practice in seclusion. I can give you a hint. The boss is dead. Just before you came, he was lured out and died. He should have been killed by the people of Soaring Cloud Fortress. His identity nameplate is broken. Now we are in a situation without a leader. We don't even dare to release this news to the public. Otherwise, we don't even need to fight. The line of defense will collapse instantly. The second elder of Sky-bearing Fortress looked at Yi Shiwen with a bitter smile and said, "What we need now is a leader who can lead us through this, and I think you are very suitable. Whether it is strength or skill, you are very suitable." Yi Shiwen pondered for a moment. If he could take over Sky-bearing Fortress, the benefits would naturally go without saying. After all, Sky-bearing Fortress was a force that had been built and established for countless years. If he could take over such a force, he could naturally struggle for many years. Moreover, he could seize the initiative in the future Blood Prison hegemony. He was only at the periphery of the Blood Prison, and those he encountered were not considered strong. However, he would enter the depths of the Blood Prison sooner or later. At that time, he would definitely encounter powerful existences in the depths of the Blood Prison. Previously, he had also asked Elder Kong about the powerful existences in the depths of the Blood Prison. Without exception, all of them had their own forces. They had countless experts under their command, and each of them was tyrannical to the extreme. Originally, for him, the hegemony of the Blood Prison was still very far away. However, now that he thought about it, it wasn't that far away anymore. Sky-bearing Fortress was indeed a little remote, and it was not in line with his ideal place to establish his force. However, at the same time, it was far away from the center of the storm, and it would also give him enough time to develop. What's more, it could save him many years of hard work. Moreover, he was thinking of a faraway place. Sooner or later, he would have to return to the profound world and the ancient, desolate era. Whether it was the human race in the profound world or the human race in the ancient, desolate era, fighting alone was not enough. No matter how strong he was only strong by himself. How many situations like this had happened in the past? If a race wanted to develop, they would have to rely on their own foundation. They would need countless experts to hold the fort. The experts in the Sky-bearing Castle were naturally very ordinary in the Blood Prison, but outside, which one of them wasn't an existence that could summon the wind and summon the rain? With these experts in the Legend Realm, the profound world and the desolate era's human race could be said to be as stable as Mount Tai. It would also save him a lot of trouble. As long as you are willing to become the new Great Elder of Sky-bearing Fortress, we are willing to do our best to help you prove your Tao, the second elder of the towering Sky Fortress said. Seeing that Yi Shiwen was a little stunned, he couldn't help but say, "In the Blood Prison, it's the law of the jungle where the strong prey on the weak. It's impossible without a leader. Only if you develop well will we be able to benefit from it. When a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will rise to the heavens. If you achieve the Tao in the future, our towering Sky Fortress can also be upgraded to the towering Sky City." At that time, we will be able to attract countless talents to join us. The second elder spoke very sincerely. It could even be said that he didn't hide anything. He hoped that Yi Shiwen could take over the position of the great elder. We can even worship you as the fort lord. If you achieve the Tao in the future, you will be the city lord. The second elder threw out another important condition. Currently, whether it was Sky-Bearing Fortress or Flying Cloud Fortress, they were all under the elder system. There was no fort lord because no one was willing to submit to anyone. The number of elders and so on only stated the order of entry. However, it was different now. If they worshipped Yi Shiwen as the fort lord, it meant that they were willing to be his subordinates. It was completely different from before. This condition could not be described as not generous. He had also seen Yi Shiwen's overwhelming strength. That was why he made such a decision. With such a powerful fort lord in charge, their sky-bearing fortress would no longer have to worry about the crisis of the fortress being destroyed at any time. Right now, many of the tyrannical existences in the depths of the blood prison have also established their own forces. There are blood demons, foreign powerhouses, and also powerful existences from the second district and even the first district. It is said that this is related to their divine nations. As for the specific reason, I have not achieved the Tao, so I am not very clear. However, it should have a great relationship with their cultivation. In order to convince Yi Shiwen, the second elder of Sky-Bearing Fortress had spared no effort. One could imagine how much importance he placed on Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen hadn't confirmed his Tao yet. So, he didn't have Yi-Mo to ask about it now. However, there must be a reason since the other Tao confirming experts were doing so. Yi Shiwen didn't have Yi-Mo to inquire about it. Although he did not know the specific reason, it was always good to be prepared in advance. In addition, he had also weighed the pros and cons. This matter could be said to be a win-win situation. He had won the foundation of his forces, and the Sky-Bearing Fortress had also won a powerful protective umbrella. There was no free lunch in the world, and there was no love without reason. Naturally, there must be a reason why the people in the Sky-Bearing Fortress were so attentive. Then, I will not decline. However, is this your idea, or did the other elders agree? Asked Yi Shiwen. Jin Buhuan greets the fort master, said the second elder of Sky-Bearing Fortress hurriedly with his hands cupped. He was really treating Yi Shiwen as a master, and not an equal existence like before. It was conceivable that he had bet all his treasures on Yi Shiwen, betting that Yi Shiwen could achieve the Tao. Yi Shiwen could not help but feel a little embarrassed. Only now did he know that the name of the second elder of Sky-Bearing Fortress was Jin Buhuan. Previously, he did not care about it at all. He only regarded the Sky-Bearing Fortress as a passing stop in his life. Don't worry, Fort Master. We have just communicated with our divine senses. We all agree that you will become our Fort Master. However, Fort Master, shouldn't we first resolve the blood demon tide in front of us? Otherwise, everything will be like a flower in the mirror and the moon in the water. Don't you think so? Said Jin Buhuan with a smile. Yi Shiwen did not know whether to laugh or cry. However, he also had this intention. Since he had become the Fort Master, he had to show the spirit of a Fort Master. Originally, the Sky-Bearing Fortress had nothing to do with him. It did not matter if he left. Now, the Sky-Bearing Fortress was his foundation. Whoever destroyed his foundation was equivalent to taking his life. Naturally, he would not let it go. Just in time, I will also let you see my means. Yi Shiwen knew that although they had agreed to let him become the Fort Master, he still had to show enough strength to win their hearts. In this world where the weak were prey to the strong, strength was the foundation of everything. As he spoke, the thunderbolt spear in his hand whizzed out at an astonishing speed. It directly soared into the sky as if it had pierced a huge hole in the sky. Hundreds and thousands of blood demons were instantly vaporized. At a glance, it looked like a huge hole had been pierced in the blood-colored sky. Crash! Immediately after, the thunderbolt's spear directly turned into a lightning swamp with boundless power of thunder, and then blasted down. Boom! With a terrifying roar, the long spear fell to the ground fiercely and blasted a huge pit with a radius of hundreds of miles. All the blood demons within this range were vaporized by the power of thunder that swept out. For a moment, a large, empty area was cleared in the middle of the endless army of blood demons. Yi Shiwen's figure quietly landed at the end of the spear. He stood proudly and looked at the countless blood demons around him with cold eyes. So strong. Who is that person? Why haven't I seen him before? Someone exclaimed. He was completely shocked by Yi Shiwen's strength. However, after thinking about it carefully, he realized that he had never seen this person before. It was as if he had descended from the sky. That is the ninth elder. The real identity of the ninth elder is not the deadly young master, but Yi Shiwen. He is the Yi Shiwen who was jointly wanted by Yao Xingqing and Jing Tianlei, one of the top 10 experts of the 3rd District, a few years ago. What Yi Shiwen? He is now our fort master. Some well-informed people had already received the news that the sky-bearing fortress, which originally had no fort master, actually had its first fort master. Such a shock could be imagined, and it caused quite a commotion among the crowd. However, the commotion only lasted for a short while. Firstly, it was because there were too many blood demons, and they did not have the time to pay attention to such things. Secondly, they were not the ruling class. For them, whether it was the fort master or the elders who ruled, there was no difference at all, and it would not affect them. Therefore, it did not matter. Therefore, they quickly accepted Yi Shiwen as the first fort master calmly. More importantly, Yi Shiwen did indeed have such strength. His move just now had completely stunned everyone. Such strength was rare even among the peak of the mythical realm. Fort Master, just do it for them. Let them see your strength and prove that we did not make the wrong choice. Jin Buhuan murmured. While everyone was still immersed in the shocking news, Yi Shiwen also started to take action. Although his spear had cleared out a lot of space, there were just too many blood demons. Almost in an instant, the entire space was filled again. Countless blood demons roared and rushed toward Yi Shiwen. Chapter 2185. Yi Shiwen could see clearly that there were countless ferocious blood demons in the endless blood clouds. There were all kinds of blood demons, and their bodies were condensed from countless blood essences. They were very powerful, and there were many blood demons in the myth realm. Among them, there were many blood demons that were extremely tall. Some of them were thousands of zhang tall, and their claws were like mountains as they smashed down. Moreover, these blood demons were not ordinary creatures. Many of them had intelligence, and they were not like the blood demons in the blood world. They were very powerful, but they all cultivated a strange kind of martial art. It was different from any kind of martial arts that Yi Shiwen had seen before. This was the strangest thing. However, in this blood prison, there was no doubt that there was nothing more powerful than this kind of martial arts. They could directly use the blood energy that filled the entire blood prison. It was very strange. Although they had intelligence, they were cruel and murderous. They were like fighting machines, and they would not stop until they were dead. In particular, when Yi Shiwen opened his magic eyes, he could clearly see that there were not only myth realm experts among these blood demons, but there were also peak myth blood demons hidden in the depth. They were the ones controlling these blood demons, and making them attack the sky-bearing fortress again and again. The powerful blood demons at the peak of the myth realm had an indescribable blood aura that spread out and formed strange pictures. It was a group of powerful divine abilities, and it showed that the blood demons' understanding of their martial arts had reached a profound level. Yi Shiwen's actions had obviously alarmed a blood demon at the peak of the myth realm. It was a tall, humanoid blood demon that looked like a mountain. He raised his head and looked at Yi Shiwen. A pair of huge bloody eyes were staring at Yi Shiwen. They were filled with endless killing intent, but it seemed as if his mind had been erased. There was no other emotion in his eyes, and a horrifying bloody aura emanated from his body. Children, go. Devour all of these outsiders and plunder everything they have. Although we are suppressed in the blood prison and can't cultivate, we can still prove our way. As long as we prove our way, we can dominate an area. There will be no one in this world who can control us. The blood demon spoke in the human language. Then, Yi Shiwen felt a tyrannical force sweeping out from the sky, driving those blood demons to form a blood-red river, rushing towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. The endless tide of blood demons was surging over from all directions. Just looking at their hideous faces was enough to make one feel suffocated. However, Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid at all. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched out. Human Dao Fist. Boom! Yi Shiwen's People Dao Fist formed an endless power of the mortal world and swept out. The void exploded, forming a large area of space collapse. These blood demons who were rushing over aggressively just now were blown up by Yi Shiwen in an instant. Boom! The surrounding sky was shattered in an instant. Those blood demons that were blown up by Yi Shiwen's punch also turned into a huge amount of blood qi. The blood qi was collected by the heart of the blood realm, and then fell into his body. He absorbed it with the art of assimilation. Although it didn't make his cultivation further in a short period of time, it cleansed his body and replenished his consumption just now. The Hua Gong Great Law was so overbearing that it could almost be said that there was no reason to talk about it. With the energy absorption of the Hua Gong Great Law, coupled with the assistance of the Phoenix regeneration technique, it could be said that unless he used the Ghost Heart Fire Array, which was far beyond his level of energy, he was almost in an invincible position. It was impossible to exhaust his Zhen Yuan. All the blood essence of these blood demons were absorbed by Yi Shiwen and directly poured into the heart of the blood realm. Yi Shiwen found that after these blood demons died, after passing through the heart of the blood realm, they faintly brought out a kind of blood martial Dao. It was a kind of martial Dao that he had never come into contact with before. He frantically analyzed it in the mysterious space. Yi Shiwen thought in his heart. He was now considered to be experienced and knowledgeable. Although he had not heard of some martial Dao, he had seen it before. He really didn't know about the blood martial Dao of this blood demon. Faintly, he also deduced some things from it. Although there was no way to directly practice it, it also expanded his knowledge, which was considered as an unexpected surprise. Although he kept on using big moves and consumed a lot of qi, with the blood demons themselves to replenish the qi and blood that Yi Shiwen lost, it was not a big deal at all. He clearly saw that these blood demons were under the command of the blood demons who were at the peak of the myth realm. That was why they were so fierce and fearless. Otherwise, after such a long time of attack, they still couldn't take down the Sky Fortress. Otherwise, these blood demons who were not low in intelligence would have long withdrawn. To catch bandits, first capture the king. To shoot a man, first shoot the horse. Yi Shiwen also understood this principle. So it could be said that he was almost holding a thunder spear in his hand, killing his way into the group of blood demons. His target was the extremely powerful blood demon who was at the peak of the myth realm. Boom! 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 The formidable power continued to explode. The power of thunder itself was the strongest power in the world. At the same time, it was also incomparably explosive. Yi Shiwen's thunder spear was vividly manifested as a result of the sudden explosion of thunder power. Every time Yi Shiwen attacked with the thunder spear, a large number of blood demons would be blasted to death by him. In the distance, Fashia Buhuan was dumbfounded. He never expected that Yi Shiwen would be so tyrannical. He was also at the peak of the 9th level of Paong Realm, an existence at the peak of the myth realm. He couldn't belittle himself. In such a situation, he naturally wouldn't die immediately if he directly attacked. However, he would probably be trapped and unable to move an inch. In the end, he would be exhausted to death. As for Yi Shiwen, he was attacking left and right. He didn't need to be a match for him at all. It could be said that his injuries were invincible. What was even more terrifying was that Yi Shiwen's attacks were all big move. They were like cannonballs that covered a large area. However, the surging qi and blood in his body seemed to have never decreased. It didn't stop surging for a moment. It was like a great river. People could feel the surging power from afar. The gap between them was obvious. If he was still a little unconvinced at the beginning, then he was completely convinced now. Strength. This was the true strength of a person who could become a castle lord. Yi Shiwen swept all the way and directly killed his way into the center of the blood demons. Wherever he passed, none of the blood demons could stop him. His target was also very clear. He directly rushed towards the blood demon who was at the peak of the myth realm. These blood demons wanted to stop him frantically, but they couldn't do anything. Compared to Yi Shiwen, they were really too weak. Yi Shiwen's actions had also completely angered this blood demon who was at the peak of the myth realm. This foreign warrior actually dared to challenge his authority. He was simply courting death. Suddenly, at this moment, this powerful blood demon who was at the peak of the myth realm instantly attacked. A long saber suddenly appeared in his hand, and he instantly slashed towards Yi Shiwen. This was a saber that could shatter heaven and earth. Even though Yi Shiwen was already prepared, he still felt surprised. The saber aura directly swept out and turned into surging blood qi. It was as if a blood god had been resurrected from a distant era. How dare you show off in front of me with such insignificant skills? I will now show you what a real saber technique is. World-shattering saber. In Yi Shiwen's hand, the emergence immortal exterminating saber suddenly appeared in his hand. An extremely powerful saber aura instantly spread out. World-shattering saber. He directly swept out with his saber. The entire world seemed to be cut in half. The powerful saber aura also swept out. With the power of the emergence immortal exterminating saber, the power of the saber aura had risen to another level. Boom! A terrifying roar sounded. Yi Shiwen's world-shattering saber was invincible. Even the world was shattered, let alone the saber aura from a blood demon who was at the peak of the myth realm. In the next second, the saber aura was completely destroyed. Immediately after, Yi Shiwen's saber aura followed like a shadow and directly struck the body of this extremely powerful blood demon, who was also at the peak of the myth realm. Puff! This blood demon who was at the peak of the myth realm was directly slashed in half. His spirit was destroyed and he could not be more dead. When the part of the blood demon that was under his control saw this scene, they could not help but break free from his control and fled in all directions. If they were not constantly being controlled, they would have long wanted to escape. It was not that easy to break through such a fortress that had existed for countless years. At this moment, a group of people was watching the battle from afar at a place thousands of miles away from the blood demon army. Among them, there were two people. One of them was a middle-aged man dressed in a green robe. His strength was outstanding. As he spoke, his figure had completely disappeared into the void. The other was a noble young master dressed in a gorgeous robe. He had a fair face and was extremely handsome. From time to time, he would play the flute in his hand, as if he was activating something. Young Master Yang is still the best. With just a mere trick, he is about to destroy the sky-bearing fortress. Behind these two people, there was a group of dozens of figures. All of them were tyrannical experts of the myth realm. Even the weakest among them was at the 6th level of the Paong realm. And one of the experts at the 9th level of the Paong realm could not help but flatter the noble young master. This is nothing. If my father were to play this tune, let alone a small fortress, even a city would be conquered," said the noble young master proudly. Chapter 2186. The cities in the blood prison were not as fragile as they were in the outside world. With the strength of a mythical expert, they could even destroy a world. But it was different in the blood prison. Even an expert at the peak of the myth realm would find it very difficult to break a fortress. Even if many myth realm experts gathered together, they would only be able to form a fortress. As for forming a city, it would only be possible if there were experts at the Tao confirming level presiding over it. Otherwise, if so many warriors gathered in a city without a super expert presiding over it, it would only become a fat piece of meat in the eyes of the top experts of the evil path, devil path, and blood demon clan. Moreover, if one was not a Tao confirming expert, it would be impossible for so many mythical experts to follow him wholeheartedly. Although the peak mythical expert and the Tao confirming expert were only one realm apart, the status and strength of the two were worlds apart. Out of hundreds of experts at the peak mythical expert, there might not be one who could truly prove the Tao. And out of hundreds of experts at the peak mythical expert, there might not be one who could cultivate to the 9th level of the Paong realm. It could be imagined that these Tao confirming experts were almost 1 in 10,000 among the mythical experts. In order to take down a city, the first thing one had to do was to defeat the Tao confirmation experts guarding the city. Only then would it be possible. Although the others did not dare to agree, after all, the matters of the Tao confirming experts were not something they could speculate about. Their strength was also not something they could easily guess. At this time, they nodded one after another, not daring to anger young Master Yang. They all knew very well that although young Master Yang was only one of the hundreds of children of that powerful existence, he was also one of the most valued children. It was quite possible for him to prove the Tao in the future. That's right, that's right. Everyone nodded and praised. On the surface, there was no sign of disagreement. Young Master Yang just nodded proudly and said, "Your flying cloud castle has been struggling to conquer such a small sky-bearing castle. How can I believe that you have the ability to do things for me in the future?" These people turned out to be experts of the flying cloud castle, and the middle-aged man in green was the great elder of the flying cloud castle. A hint of displeasure flashed across the great elder's face. He was already so old, yet he still had to be lectured by a junior who was tens of thousands of years younger than him. Given his pride, it was only natural that he felt extremely displeased. However, this displeasure only lasted for a moment, and he didn't dare continue to show it. Even though he didn't care about this young Master Yang, he couldn't ignore the extremely terrifying existence standing behind him. That existence could probably kill him with a single finger. Yes, it's mainly because the great elder of the sky-bearing fortress is quite difficult to deal with. Moreover, there's also the 9th elder. His origin is unknown, but he's very powerful. We can't do anything about it. The great elder of the flying cloud fortress said helplessly. This was also the truth. If that was not the case, he would have been equivalent to the castle lord of the flying cloud castle. He would have enjoyed such a position, so why did he choose to rely on this young Master Yang? It was because he was keenly aware that Yi Shiwen's arrival would bring a great change to the status of the flying cloud fortress and the sky-bearing fortress. In the face of a truly tyrannical expert, numbers were meaningless. For example, he had the 8-division celestial flag in his hand. Even if he encountered all the main forces of the sky-bearing fortress and so many experts at the peak of the myth realm, he could still escape with ease. It was nothing at all. Moreover, Yi Shiwen also possessed the strength to contend with him with the 8-division celestial flag. This was the most important thing. In this case, there were too many uncertain factors. Perhaps he would never have imagined that the current Yi Shiwen he had estimated was the Yi Shiwen from 2 years ago. Compared to 2 years ago, the current Yi Shiwen's strength had improved tremendously. A scholar who had been away for 3 days must be looked at in a different light. Moreover, 2 years had already passed. According to his understanding, such a situation did not exist. His strength was already at the limit of the peak of the myth realm. How could Yi Shiwen grow stronger than him? Even if it was not the limit, it was impossible to improve to such a level in 2 years. That was illogical. You've already tricked the Great Elder out and killed him. As for the 9th Elder, it doesn't matter. Didn't you send 5 experts over? It would be too shameful if 5 people couldn't even kill one of them. Besides, if it really doesn't work, I can do it myself. However, I won't leave the Bloodstone mine for you. I'm going to take it all away. Young Master Yang obviously did not care about these things. For him, all of this was not difficult at all. He was the true Son of God. Who could compete with him? Even the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Fortress, who was known to be at the peak of the myth realm, was nothing in his eyes. It was just a case of a monkey claiming to be the king when there was no tiger in the mountain. As for the 9th Elder of the Sky Fortress, it did not matter where he came from or where he came from. He would just kill him. He waved the flute in his hand. This was not an ordinary flute. It was a god artifact with a defect. It could use demonic music to control these blood demons. It was not easy for him to borrow it from his father. This kind of defective divine artifact was very rare. If it had not been for a coincidence, even a powerful existence like his father would not have been able to have such a defective divine artifact. Who is that? All of a sudden, he saw a figure leaping into the midst of countless blood demons without him noticing. His entire person was like a thunderstorm. Wherever he passed by, countless blood demons would be minced into pieces on the spot. Then, they would turn into a sky full of bloody aura and be absorbed by him. That terrifying existence was like an incomparably powerful ancient chariot, crushing everything in its path. Only death awaited those who tried to block its path. This was only a way out. As he said this, the experts of the Flying Cloud Fortress were also stunned. They all spoke one after another. Who the hell is this person? This is too terrifying. Although many of these blood demons are not even at the mythical level, there are so many of them that they are enough to drown a peak mythical expert. Yet he doesn't care and just kills them all. Look. He's fighting a blood demon at the peak of the myth realm. Just how strong is he? The mythical experts of the Flying Cloud Fortress saw that man, who looked like an extremely powerful god of war, attack. A great battle broke out instantly, and the sky was torn apart by the airflow created by the battle between the two sides. That man was Yi Shiwen. His entire body was protected by countless wind and thunder powers. No attack could break through the barrier of his wind and thunder powers. However, because of this, his spiritual ether was being consumed at an alarming rate. However, he continued to beat up those blood demons and used the heart of the blood world to refine the blood chi of those blood demons. Then, he used the cultivation conversion grand technique to absorb the blood chi and constantly replenish his real essence. Wherever he went, he was invincible. Moreover, he didn't have to worry about running out of real essence. As long as he continued to kill, his real essence would never run out. He knew very well that there were too many blood demons. Even if he wanted to kill them all, it would be impossible. There was simply no end to them. However, he still had another way, and that was to kill all the blood demons at the peak of the mythical level. Although there were many blood demons at the peak of the mythical level, there were still far fewer of them compared to the endless blood demon army. He was practically invincible. The blood demons kept attacking him, trying to stop him from advancing, but it was useless. They were no match for him at all. However, he was also annoyed by the blood demons. He finally understood why Sky Towering Castle, which had so many experts at the peak of the mythical realm guarding it, would turn pale when the blood demons were mentioned. Even the weakest among them was at the mythical realm. Not everybody was as strong as him and could not care less when faced with the blood demons. Most people, even if they were experts at the peak of the myth realm, could only flee in panic when faced with a tide of blood demons of such a scale, not daring to go forward. Because of this, be it the sky-bearing fortress or the flying cloud fortress, they were dumbfounded when they saw him rush in and kill all the blood demons. They were completely dumbfounded. There was actually someone who could do this. What was even more terrifying was that he could reach such a level when he was not even at the peak of the mythical level. The blood demon at the peak of the mythical level had already discovered Yi Shiwen's existence. When it saw that its subordinates could not stop Yi Shiwen, it decided to attack directly. Its huge body that was thousands of feet tall was as fast as lightning. Its sharp claws suddenly slashed down, and a terrifying roar burst out from its mouth. Yi Shiwen's body did not move. His hands directly glowed with golden light, and he suddenly met the huge, sharp claws. Bang! The claws, one big and one small, collided in the void. A terrifying force directly surged out, forming a huge wave that rolled out in all directions. The blood demons who could not dodge in time screamed, and turned into a cloud of blood mist. Even the aftermath of the battle between these two terrifying existences could destroy them. This was the so-called fight between immortals, and mortals suffered. Suddenly, the blood demon at the peak of the mythical level kept roaring. Endless blood-colored flames burned on its sharp claws, burning directly towards Yi Shiwen through the air. A hint of a smile appeared in Yi Shiwen's eyes, and he slowly said, "There's no time. I won't play with you anymore. I'll finish you off with one move." Chapter 2187. As he spoke, Yi Shiwen opened his mouth and formed a powerful suction force. The blood-colored flame was swallowed by him. The blood-colored flame was constantly wreaking havoc in his body. However, it only lasted for a moment before it was suppressed by the Nanming mythical fire that emerged from his body. It even swallowed and assimilated the flame, making his Nanming mythical fire even more powerful. The Nanming mythical fire was a famous mutated flame in the world. Yi Shiwen could even endure the Nanming mythical fire and even nurture it. What more the mere blood-colored flame? It was nothing. Then, Yi Shiwen clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and the power of the mortal world was formed. It spread out from his fist in tension, and vaguely evolved into a world of mortals. The surging mortal world was the most powerful force in the world. The deepest mystery of the human Tao fist was contained in the surging mortal world. Boom! Yi Shiwen's fist force soared into the sky. The dazzling golden light covered all the colors in the world. It was as if the sun had exploded in the sky. Everyone was blinded all of a sudden. Yi Shiwen's human Tao fist blasted forward and instantly blasted towards the blood demon at the peak of the mythical realm. At this moment, many blood demons seemed to have gone mad and rushed forward in a frenzy. In an instant, all of them were suppressed to death by Yi Shiwen's fist force. There were no accidents. His fist force did not lose momentum and directly blasted towards the blood demon at the peak of the mythical realm. Bang! The blood demon at the peak of the mythical realm was blasted to death by his fist without any suspense. The difference in strength between the two sides was too great. Yi Shiwen had completely integrated 3 martial arts incarnations. In the past 2 years, the saber arts incarnation that he had condensed had also been integrated. Coupled with the 5 Emperor's battle armor, he was already in his strongest state at this moment. He was invincible and unstoppable. In ordinary battles, he would not choose to activate the 3 martial arts incarnations because it would consume too much energy. The 3 martial arts incarnations were constantly consuming energy. After activating the 3 martial arts incarnations at the same time, his strength would increase exponentially. However, at the same time, the consumption would also increase exponentially. He could not fight in this state for too long. Therefore, he would not stop fighting. He could not stop for even a moment. Once he stopped, his consumption would exceed his replenishment. After killing this mythical peak blood demon, Yi Shiwen absorbed all the blood essence in its body, replenishing the consumption of activating the 3 martial arts incarnations at the same time. Sure enough, after he killed the blood demon at the mythical peak, the nearby blood demons screamed and fled. They weren't stupid and couldn't see how powerful Yi Shiwen was. They were just suppressed by the blood demon at the mythical peak. High-level blood demons were born to suppress low-level blood demons. They had witnessed Yi Shiwen's terror with their own eyes. It could be said that he was invincible. No one was his opponent. Flying Cloud Castle, young Master Yang, and the others had witnessed Yi Shiwen beheading this blood demon expert who was at the peak of the myth realm. He's so strong. A blood demon at the peak of the myth realm couldn't even take a punch from him and was killed. We should have heard of such great power, but why haven't we? Someone said, puzzled. Could he be the rumored new 9th Elder of the Sky-Bearing Castle? Only the 9th Elder could possibly be him. That's right. He must be the 9th Elder. Otherwise, it's impossible that we didn't get any information about a master like He Yang. He's so powerful. No wonder Old 7 and Old 8 were defeated by him. He does have such strength. Damn it, he's trying to ruin our plan. Many people couldn't help but roar. The soaring cloud fortress was putting everything on the line this time. They wanted to get rid of the sky-bearing fortress, their greatest threat. Among the nearby fortresses, they were the closest to each other. Because of this, the competition between the two sides was also very intense. It was true that the sky-bearing castle was no match for them. They had been suppressed by them for years, but at the same time, the sky-bearing castle had restrained more than half of their strength. They couldn't completely free up their hands to expand outward. Therefore, this time, they had already made up their mind to eradicate this evil neighbor. Who knew that such a guy would appear? Damn it, we can't let him continue like this. Otherwise, our plan will all be ruined, someone exclaimed. However, there was nothing they could do. Yi Shiwen was too strong. He could be said to be invincible. Even the blood demon army couldn't stop him, let alone them. In their eyes, Yi Shiwen didn't stop at all. After killing a blood demon at the peak of the myth realm, he directly pounced on the next blood demon at the peak of the myth realm. Everyone's expression changed. This was the biggest weakness of the blood demon tide. As long as the leader of the blood demon tide was killed, the other blood demons would naturally collapse. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. However, it turned out that it was not a weakness, because nobody had ever been able to take the head of a general in a tide of blood demons, and it was just an army of 10,000. The infinite blood demons were so numerous that even the soldiers themselves felt that their blood was freezing, not to mention the enemy. Now that such a person had appeared, this flaw that was not a weakness was suddenly magnified. Although there were still a lot of blood demons at the peak of the myth realm, they couldn't withstand such a slaughter. If Yi Shiwen killed a blood demon at the peak of the myth realm with a punch, how long could the remaining blood demons last? How were they supposed to play? They couldn't play happily at all. Seeing Yi Shiwen advancing all the way to the front of another blood demon at the peak of the myth realm, the great elder of the Flying Cloud Fortress couldn't stand it anymore. He stepped forward and scolded, "I'll deal with him. I can't let him ruin our plan. The sky-bearing fortress can't hold on much longer. It won't be long before the sky-bearing fortress is completely destroyed and become a name in history. Whoever dares to stop me, I'll kill them." As he spoke, his entire body flew out in an instant, disappearing into the crowd of blood demons in an instant. Young Master Yang just watched proudly. He didn't have the slightest intention to move, as if these battles couldn't affect him at all. Yi Shiwen unleashed his invincible might and attacked another blood demon at the peak of the myth realm. It went smoothly as usual. Those ordinary blood demons couldn't even break through his defense. They screamed and exploded into blood chi, which was absorbed by him. World-shattering saber! He immediately grabbed the emergence immortal exterminating saber and slashed downward. A terrifying force pierced through the sky and swept across. Ah! That blood demon at the peak of the myth realm didn't even have time to react before he was killed by Yi Shiwen's saber. He didn't even have time to show his strength. In the sky-bearing fortress, everyone was a little desperate. However, when they saw how powerful Yi Shiwen was, they regained their confidence. If they could survive, why would they want to die? Jin Buhuan watched as Yi Shiwen killed another blood demon at the peak of the myth realm. He had already killed several blood demons at the peak of the myth realm. It was as if these powerful blood demons at the peak of the myth realm, who could summon the wind and summon the rain, were like pieces of paper in front of him. They couldn't even withstand a single blow from him. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed such a ridiculous thing if someone else had told him about it. They had made the decision to make Yi Shiwen the castle lord in a moment of desperation because they had no other choice. But now, they had completely surrendered to Yi Shiwen's strength. The benefits of having such a tyrannical expert as their personal guard were self-evident. Yi Shiwen had just beheaded this blood demon at the peak of the myth realm, and had just absorbed the blood essence and transformed it into real elemental energy when the void suddenly shook. The violent fluctuations were like the surface of the water, and they suddenly began to tremble. Whoosh! At this moment, the sky was torn apart like a scroll. Immediately after, a stream of chaotic chi turned into a sword chi and blasted down. It wanted to kill Yi Shiwen at the most critical moment. Bang! This sword chi blasted directly on Yi Shiwen's body and blasted on the 5 Emperor's battle armor on his body. It shook him and made him take a few steps back. However, it didn't hurt him. Which scoundrel are you? Show yourself. Yi Shiwen didn't wait for his footing to stabilize and directly attack. Soul-crushing blood claw. 5 incomparably huge cracks were torn open. They grew bigger and bigger, instantly tearing the space apart. The chaotic sword chi was also directly crushed, revealing the figure of the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. He held the 8 tribes' celestial flag in his hand and waved it directly. Hundreds of streams of chaotic chi were directly waved by him. They turned into sword chi and blasted towards Yi Shiwen. This is the 8 tribes' celestial flag. Are you the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle? As expected, this matter has something to do with your Flying Cloud Castle. Yi Shiwen's eyesight was so good that he figured everything out almost instantly. He also guessed the identity of the person in front of him. This person should be the great elder who controlled the entire Flying Cloud Castle. It was said that the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was truly at the peak of the mythical realm. He was only half a step away from proving his Tao. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't easily come out. He would always be in a state of closed-door training to comprehend the supreme path and prove his Tao. It seemed that he was indeed very powerful. They were both 8 tribes' celestial flag. However, the power of the 8 tribes' celestial flag in the hands of the Flying Cloud Castle's 8th elder and Yi Shiwen's 8th elder were worlds apart. The power could even be said to be incomparable. However, Yi Shiwen wasn't shocked. Instead, he was delighted. He directly grabbed it with his big hand. Ha 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 ha, I've searched far and wide, only to find it by chance. I was just thinking about how to deal with the mastermind behind this blood demon tide, and you popped up. If you don't want to die, tell me what you've done. Chapter 2188. When the hundreds of sword chi of chaos touched Yi Shiwen's hand, they directly blasted into the divinity on the surface of his palm, creating a series of clanging sounds. However, they could not break through his defense. How is this possible? His body has such a strong defense. The great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was horrified when he saw this. He was very clear about the power of his sword chi of chaos. Moreover, it was released with the help of the 8-division celestial flag. If an ordinary cultivator at the 9th heaven of Paong realm was hit by it, he would be seriously injured on the spot. Judging from Yi Shiwen's performance, he naturally would not have such a foolish idea. However, he did not even manage to break through Yi Shiwen's defense, which was completely beyond his expectations. Yi Shiwen directly clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. The sword chi of chaos that was still raging in his hand was directly crushed by him. With a loud bang, it turned into energy all over the sky. However, it could not hurt Yi Shiwen at all. He looked at the great elder of the flying cloud castle. The power of the sword chi of chaos was indeed good. If it were 2 years ago, he would definitely use the demon beckoning banner to resist it. However, his current strength was far from what it was 2 years ago. It was almost like he had improved several times. He could almost resist it with his bare hand. It was already very difficult for the sword chi of chaos to break through his defense. You'd better surrender obediently. Tell me honestly what method you've used to command these blood demons to act as your vanguard. Yi Shiwen suddenly rushed to the front of the great elder of the flying cloud castle with a schwa sound. Damn human, you underestimate me too much! Yi Shiwen directly rushed over to kill him. It was obvious that he did not take him seriously. He did not even care what kind of reaction he would have. He was immediately enraged. This was a great humiliation. He let out a long roar and the 8-divisional celestial banner in his hand suddenly swept out. Countless streams of chaotic chi spread out from it, turning into chaotic chi that filled the sky and directly spread out. Then, these chi of chaos condensed in the sky and turned into an incomparably huge sword chi of chaos. It directly blasted down towards Yi Shiwen. This sword chi of chaos itself was condensed from many sword chi of chaos. In terms of power, it was unknown how much more tyrannical it was than those scattered sword chi of chaos. He was determined to kill Yi Shiwen. The power of chaos, eternal! He roared, wanting to thoroughly defeat Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid in the face of the chaotic chi that was sweeping across the sky. He flipped his palm and a seal appeared on his palm. It was the Han seal. His palm directly covered it, and it was as if a mountain had rolled over and crashed down. He used the mountain quaking seal to resist the chaotic sword chi. Boom! The incomparably huge chaotic sword chi directly blasted into the Han seal, shattering inch by inch. It was simply unable to withstand the might of the Han seal. Now, Yi Shiwen had already cultivated the overturning sky seal to the most perfect level. This was a complete god-level martial technique. Compared to this martial technique, adjudication claw was nothing. Yi Shiwen's strength was even stronger when he used the overturning sky seal than when he used the adjudication claw. What? How is that possible? Even an elite at the peak of the myth realm would be instantly injured or even killed if they don't defend against it. The great elder of the flying cloud castle was a little panicked at this time. He was confident that he could at least contend against Yi Shiwen, but now, the great elder of the flying cloud castle was panicking. Only now did he realize how wrong he was previously. The two of them were not on the same level at all. In the distance, the experts of the flying cloud castle, who had been paying attention to this side, were suddenly dumbfounded. The great elder of the flying cloud castle's tyrannical power that could seriously injure an elite at the peak of the myth realm did not have any effect at all. Yi Shiwen easily resolved the attacks. How could this be? He's not even injured at all. He's simply too strong. What should we do? Is he really going to ruin our plans this time? Damn it! Damn it! It seems that there's really no way to contend with him unless young Master Yan is willing to take action. This move of Yi Shiwen's had completely destroyed the Great Elder's primal chaos sword energy. After that, his entire body was sent flying by the impact. After Yi Shiwen sent the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle flying, he was not in a hurry to chase after him. This was all under his control. If the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle wanted to escape, he would have to go through him. Therefore, Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. Humph, I let this 8th-division celestial flag escape previously. Now you've sent it to me again. Yi Shiwen sneered. If the people of the Flying Cloud Castle had not taken the initiative to come to Qiao Xin, he really would not have the time to deal with the Flying Cloud Castle in such a short time. Now, he could deal with them all at once. As long as he devoured the 8th-division celestial flag, his demon summoning banner would truly be able to complete its god rules and become a divine tool again. When that time came, he would be able to protect himself even if he encountered a deity. What was there to be afraid of? Damn it, are you going to ruin our plans? Then you'll definitely die without a burial place. The great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle's face turned pale. He barely mobilized all his power to calm the surging qi and blood in his body. At this time, he had completely understood that he was not a match for Yi Shiwen. However, he did not panic because he still had young Master Yang behind him, and young Master Yang had such a colossus behind him. What was there for him to be afraid of? Die without a burial place? Ha ha! A place that can bury me doesn't exist in this world. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. I know you want to buy time to heal your injuries, but it's useless. The gap between you and me is too big. Even if you heal your injuries, you can't possibly be a match for me. Now, you'd better tell me what method you use to make these blood beasts obey your orders. I'm also a little curious. I think it's better that you don't know. If you know, I think you'll immediately kneel down. The great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle's face stiffened. Yi Shiwen had seen through his plan. However, at this time, he had no other way out. Haha, I'd like to see who's standing behind you to the extent that I'm about to kneel down just by hearing your name. Yi Shiwen could not help but sneer. Since you're not willing to tell me, don't blame me for being impolite. Originally, I thought you were a promising talent and wanted to subdue you. Now it seems that you're just stubborn. But it doesn't matter. I don't care what method you have. As long as I kill all of you, this blood demon tide should be over. Yi Shiwen didn't bother to say anything to them. He only had one method. However, it was also the simplest method. He had to cut through the Gordian knot quickly. As long as the experts of the Flying Cloud Castle died, the blood demon tide would naturally come to an end. It didn't matter what method he used. The premise was that the people were still alive and able to control the blood demon. He had already faintly felt that behind the blood demon tide, some powerful experts of the myth realm were peeping. They should be the people of the Flying Cloud Castle. He had such confidence that he could ignore all the conspiracies and tricks. The rules did not matter at all. You? With just you? Ah! The great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle suddenly burst into laughter. Can't I? Then give it a try. Yi Shiwen did not say much to him. Immediately, the emergence immortal exterminating saber appeared in his hand. He had lost all his patience. Originally, he wanted to subdue the Flying Cloud Castle. In that case, his strength would more than double out of thin air and lay a good foundation for building a city and fighting for hegemony in the future. As for whether they were willing to be subdued or not, it did not matter to him at all. As long as his strength continued to increase, even if these people had any ulterior motives, they would not dare to rebel. In that case, it would not make any difference. Most importantly, he did not have that much time to waste. Worldbreaker Saber, break! He slashed with his saber. Countless saber auras gushed out from the long saber. They were mighty and majestic, forming a long saber river that crushed everything in its way. It directly blasted towards the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. The great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle immediately turned pale with fright. He hurriedly retreated while constantly waving the 8 tribes' celestial flag and blasted out chaotic sword auras to resist Yi Shiwen's sword aura. Many blood demons were also within the attack range of the World Breaker saber. In an instant, all of them screamed and evaporated into a cloud of blood mist, which was absorbed by Yi Shiwen. The chaotic sword auras blasted out by the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle could not stop Yi Shiwen's World Breaker saber at all. They were directly smashed into pieces. Yi Shiwen's speed was getting faster and faster as he slashed down vertically. Bang! With an incomparably loud roar, a huge mushroom cloud rose from the place where Yi Shiwen slashed the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. It instantly turned into a sky full of airwaves, covering everything and destroying everything. Then, a figure was seen flying out. It was the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. At the critical moment, he wrapped his body with the 8 tribes' celestial flag, which prevented him from being smashed by Yi Shiwen's saber. Even so, with the protection of the 8 tribes' celestial flag, he was still severely injured on the spot. He flew out and crashed into countless blood demons. After that, he crashed into a mountain peak and smashed more than half of the mountain peak. Seeing this, Yi Shiwen was too lazy to talk nonsense. He took a step forward and came directly in front of the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. He directly slashed down with his saber, intending to eradicate this scourge completely. "Kid, you're very arrogant. But don't even think about being arrogant with me here." At this moment, an arrogant voice descended from the sky. Accompanying this voice was a shocking sound sword, which directly blasted through the vast sky. It was invisible and colorless, and had already blasted in front of Yi Shiwen in a flash. Sound wave attack. Yi Shiwen slightly leaned sideways, and this earth-shattering sound sword brushed past his body. However, his hand didn't slow down at all. He chopped off the head of the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle with his blade. His spirit was completely annihilated. The 8 tribes' celestial flag did not escape this time, and was easily obtained by him. Chapter 2189. How dare you kill someone right under my nose? The voice was shocked and angry. Then, young Master Yang came over in an escape light. "So what if I killed him?" Yi Shiwen looked at young Master Yang. "The blood demon tide this time is probably related to you." Yi Shiwen's eyes were sharp. The strength of the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Fortress could be said to be the best in the Flying Cloud Fortress. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to sit firmly in the position of the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Fortress. Although it was in chronological order, it was also related to strength. The person who could sit firmly in the position of the Great Elder must be the best among the strong. However, the strength of this young Master Yang was even more tyrannical than the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Fortress. This was already abnormal. Combined with the fact that the Flying Cloud Fortress suddenly had the ability to command a large number of blood demons to attack the city, the answer was obvious. His brain worked so fast that it was even more tyrannical than any supercomputer. In an instant, he had calculated countless possibilities and eliminated all of them. This allowed him to hit the nail on the head and point out the essence of the truth. "So what if it's me?" said young Master Yang coldly. "Then it's simple. As long as you die, the blood demon tide will end," said Yi Shiwen as his eyes lit up. "Ha ha, that's ridiculous. I think you've really lost your mind. How dare you try to kill me?" Young Master Yang was exasperated. Since he was born, he was already of the noblest bloodline. Relying on his father's love, no one had ever dared to kill him before. The Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Fortress had always been a man of his word in the Flying Cloud Fortress. In front of him, young Master Yang was like a dog who didn't dare to speak carelessly. "So what if I kill you?" Yi Shiwen Shua transformed into a golden light and rushed forward. It was unknown when a long sword had appeared in his hand, and he directly chopped down towards young Master Yang. Young Master Yang was suddenly shocked. That shocking killing intent actually caused all the pores on his body to close in fear. It was as if he had fallen into an ice cave in an instant. That sharp sword chi directly forced him to the point that his heart almost stopped beating completely. He only saw Yi Shiwen's figure leaping out of the void. He didn't know when the long sword had already pounced on him. It was as if the Milky Way had directly slashed down. The majestic sword Tao laws had already swept everything away. There was no need for any words to slash through everything. Who do you think you are? How dare you compare yourself to me? Young Master Yang was immediately enraged. He was actually forced to this extent. He roared again and directly used his strongest martial arts. A hand slapped down, and suddenly the sky collapsed and the earth caved in. Heaven burying hand. His big hand smashed down as if it could bury the sky. It was an extremely high-level deity-level martial art. Any one of his 5 fingers could severely injure an existence at the pinnacle of the Paong state. Countless strange laws and talismans revolved around his 5 fingers. Bang! The huge hand and the sword aura collided directly, forming a monstrous wave that annihilated a large number of the nearby blood demons. They were blown up right away. This young Master Yang was indeed very strong. He was even more tyrannical than the great elder of the Flying Cloud Fortress. The power of his entire body had almost reached an upper limit, a peak. Yi Shiwen even felt a familiar aura from this young Master Yang. It was similar to Yi Shukong's aura. Back then, the Sea Emperor also had a similar aura. Countless thoughts suddenly emerged in his mind. Could this person be the Son of God? If this is the case, then his background is really not small. But after thinking about it, it seems that it is not strange here. In the depths of the blood prison, there are Tao-proving level experts. These Tao-proving level experts are not pure in heart and mind. It is normal for them to leave behind children. This was not uncommon in the mythological era. There were even many powerful sons of God who were born as demigods with unimaginable talent and strength. But he did not take it to heart. Although young Master Yang was tyrannical, there was still a huge gap compared to him. The only thing to worry about was the powerful existence behind young Master Yang. But this thought only rose slightly before it was suppressed by him. There was nothing more to say now. Even if he advanced further, he would have the power to protect himself even against Tao-proving level experts. There was nothing to be afraid of at all. Yi Shiwen grabbed with his big hand, and the golden sword key condensed into a golden long sword. The golden sword key flowed on the body of the sword, and under his direct control, it turned into a terrifying energy frenzy, destroying everything and bombarding towards young Master Yang. Young Master Yang's face suddenly changed. He felt a terrifying aura from this sword. He retreated again and again. He could not help but lament in his heart. How can this human be so strong? He is only at the 7th level of Paong realm, and he is already this strong. When he breaks into the peak of the mythological era, no one will be able to control him. What was more terrifying was that he finally realized that Yi Shiwen did not use his full strength just now. That was why he felt that he could resist. Now that Yi Shiwen had fully displayed his strength, it gave him an extremely terrifying feeling. Damn it, I'm going all out! He let out a furious roar as his hands turned into the sky. Countless laws and Taoist rhymes leaked out from his hands, destroying everything in their path. This was an extremely high-level cultivation technique. No attack could touch his body, and it could completely destroy everything. But Yi Shiwen was expressionless. He directly slashed down with the long sword in his hand. Boom! The combat power of the peak of the mythological era burst out in an instant. It even directly exploded the sky, possessing some of the immortal light of the god. Yi Shiwen's sword light broke through the buried heaven's hand in an instant. It broke through all of young Master Yang's defenses, and tore open a huge bloody scar on his body. His entire body had almost been chopped in half. He would have died if he hadn't resisted at the critical moment. Roar! Young Master Yang was forced to this point, and he roared again and again. His noble body had never been injured to such an extent. He was almost forced into a dead end. He quickly retreated, looked at Yi Shiwen with resentment, and was about to escape. How could he dare to stay and face such a fierce god? You want to leave? I think it's too easy for you. Yi Shiwen sneered, and the emergence immortal exterminating saber suddenly appeared in his hand. Broken World Saber. A terrifying saber aura swept up, and instantly surged out, destroying everything. It directly chased after young Master Yang. Damn human, if you dare to kill me, my father will definitely not let you go. As he screamed, the saber aura caught up with him. His whole body suddenly exploded on the spot, turning into countless blood essences, which contained many talismans formed by the divine Tao laws, attached to the flesh. Yi Shiwen grabbed it in his hand. The value of a natural-born demigod's blood essence was simply needless to say. The energy contained in it was a trivial matter. The real essence lay in the great way that belonged to the gods that were engraved in the flesh. They were different from the acquired demigods who had cultivated to the demigod realm. These innate demigods were the children of God from the moment they were born. Their flesh and blood contained the great Tao of God. This made them different from ordinary people. Whether it was cultivation or other things, they had a talent that far surpassed others. There were too many great Tao contained in them. This was undoubtedly crucial for Yi Shiwen at present. In his current situation, it would still take a long time to cultivate to the 9th level of Paong realm, not to mention Tao validation. However, time waits for no man, and his enemies were getting stronger and stronger. If the Abyssal Demon Lord confirmed his Tao and returned, it would be a calamity for him. Although he didn't know what level the Abyssal Demon Lord had reached, he had to be fully prepared. He had to have a trump card that could contend against a Tao-confirming expert. This idea was crazy for others. A demigod actually dared to seek a way to compete with the gods. His comprehension had just reached the peak of the mythical realm, which allowed him to burst out the combat power of the peak of the mythical realm. However, if he wanted to compete with the masters of Tao validation, his comprehension must at least reach the level of Tao validation. However, how could it be so easy to reach the Tao-confirming realm? Otherwise, this threshold wouldn't have been so difficult for countless geniuses throughout the ages. Countless geniuses were stuck at this threshold until their deaths, and in the end, they turned into dust. The difficulty of this could be imagined. It was even better to cultivate to the peak of Paong realm first, and then seek the opportunity of Tao validation. However, he had a faint feeling that a disaster was coming, and he knew that he did not have that much time. This feeling made him involuntarily speed up his cultivation. Now that he had the divine path law contained in the flesh and blood of the Son of God, it made it possible for him to have a further breakthrough in his combat power. Although it was impossible for him to prove Tao validation in a short time, and he might not be able to prove Tao validation in his lifetime, it was not necessary to prove Tao validation in order to have the strength of Tao validation. As long as he understood the operating rules of the divine path law, it was not impossible for him to have the strength to compete with the masters of Tao validation in a short time. Although there were few people who had such tyrannical strength since ancient times, it was not that they did not exist. Now, he planned to go against the heavens, and do something that even the outstanding people of ancient times could not do. Of course, this would require a huge amount of energy, but at least he had a direction. If it was not for the divine path law in the blood and essence, he would not even have a direction. At least there was hope. The 8-component heaven flag appeared on his palm, and then he directly put it into the Tianyuan mirror. This was also one of the important methods and trump cards that he would use to compete with the masters of Tao validation. Although he had not verified it, He was very confident. Although he might have offended an extremely powerful master of Tao validation, he felt that it was all worth it. As long as his combat power broke through again, the masters of Tao validation would not be able to do anything to him. Chapter 2190. Coupled with the corpse of the wolf deity in his hands, he had greater confidence in breaking through the combat power of the deity level. Thinking of this, he only felt that his mood suddenly became clear. He only felt that all the bones in his body had opened up. This was an indescribable feeling. After breaking through the obstacles in his heart, it made his vision more widened. He suddenly had a feeling of being enlightened. He knew that breaking through to the next realm was not a chasm, but it still needed time. He didn't have that time now. There were too many things that he needed to do at the moment. In front of him, there was a flute. It was suffused with divine power, spreading in circles. Yi Shiwen grabbed the flute. It seemed as if the entire body of this flute was made of silver. Then, an astonishing divine power erupted from it. It transformed into an energy shock wave, and spread out in all directions. It seemed as if it wanted to send Yi Shiwen flying. "You still dare to struggle?" Yi Shiwen shouted loudly and slowly closed his palms. He firmly pressed down on the eruption of divine might, and directly grabbed the silver-white flute. "Who is it? How dare you peep at my martial instrument?" An incomparably loud roar came from the depths of the silver flute. Then, a terrifying figure leaped out of the silver flute. It directly spread out countless divine might, emitting countless divine light rays, which dyed the sky golden like a wheat field. It was a middle-aged man, wearing a golden divine robe, but his face couldn't be seen at all. The arrogant aura and the power emitted from his body made Yi Shiwen easily judge that this middle-aged man should be a deity. Yi Shiwen had seen deities before, but those were deities that had fallen or were in deep sleep. This one was undoubtedly a living deity. The power was not at the same level as the deities that Yi Shiwen had encountered before. However, Yi Shiwen wasn't the same as before. He couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. He immediately speculated that if young Master Yang was the son of God, then the remnant of this deity was likely to be young Master Yang's father. He was also a real deity that lived in this world. However, he was only slightly stunned, and then he laughed coldly and said, "I wouldn't say a single word and leave if your main body was here. You're just a soul core clone, yet you're trying to order me around? Arrogant! How dare you blaspheme the gods?" This incomparably powerful god suddenly became furious. He was only a remnant of the god. However, he was also a part of the god's body. So, he had naturally inherited that arrogance. He was a god, and Yi Shiwen was only an ant even though he was a demigod. However, an ant had dared to be so rude to a god. Bang! Bang! This incomparably powerful god made his move. He transformed into a huge god's hand, and slammed it down towards Yi Shiwen. It seemed as if he wanted to blast him to death. That's the power of the gods! At this time, without young Master Yang's command, the blood demons broke free from his control and quickly scattered. Although they were usually brutal, they were not brainless. This exposed Yi Shiwen and the powerful deity in the void to the experts of the Soaring Cloud Castle and the Sky-Bearing Castle. Everyone was stunned. They had never thought that it would actually be a god. These experts of the mythical realm were known as demigod. They were known as the group of people who were closest to the god. So, they were more aware of how terrifying the gods were. Those below the Tao confirmation realm were all ant. This sentence was not false at all. In fact, the truth was even more despairing than this sentence. Even Jin Buhuan's face was a little pale at this time. Compared to the gods, they were too weak. It was too much to describe them as ant. However, Yi Shiwen was going to fight against a god. The gods weren't legends in the blood prison. They weren't fallen or dormant pushovers either. On the contrary, They were ridiculously tyrannical existences. In fact, they were living existences. Jean Buhuan could not help but smile bitterly. This new castle master seemed to have gone overboard. He really knew how to attract hatred. The people of the Flying Cloud Castle were even more scared. They were not scared because a wisp of the deity's spirit incarnation had appeared in the silver flute, but because Yi Shiwen had killed young Master Yang. They did not dare to imagine how terrible it would be if this matter were to break out. What kind of attack would they face from such a powerful existence? It's over. Young Master Yang is dead. I wonder how angry the victorious Sun City Lord will be. The wrath of a god. It's over. The foundation of the Soaring Cloud Castle is finished. He must be crazy. Couldn't he feel that it was the Son of God, a natural-born demigod? He actually dared to kill him. He must be crazy. But speaking of which, this young Master Yang is too weak. Didn't they say that these natural-born demigods are as strong as they want? Now it seems that he is just SOSO. The people of the Soaring Cloud Castle suddenly burst into an uproar. They suddenly did not know where to go. The great elder of the Soaring Cloud Castle was dead. Even the Soaring Cloud Castle was about to be destroyed. They really did not know where to go. At this time, their only thought was to escape immediately. However, when their eyes turned towards Yi Shiwen, they firmly stared at him. They couldn't tear their eyes away. It was all because of this guy. If it weren't for him, they wouldn't be in such a miserable state. At this time, Yi Shiwen naturally did not know the thoughts of both sides. He was completely focused on this god. The city lord of victorious Sun City directly pressed down with his huge palm, causing the entire sky to shatter. Invincible divine might was everywhere. This was the burying heaven palm. The same move, but it was countless times more tyrannical than the one young Master Yang displayed. Good. Just in time. Let me test where my limit is. Yi Shiwen was not surprised. Instead, he was happy. The victorious Sun City Lord was a legendary god. His strength was unfathomable. And now, it was only a wisp of the remnant consciousness of the victorious Sun City Lord. Even if it was just a wisp of remnant consciousness, it was comparable to the real peak of the myth. Although the strength of the remnant consciousness of the victorious Sun City Lord was only a little stronger than that of young Master Yang, it was not by much. However, the same martial arts move was twice as powerful in the hands of the victorious Sun City Lord. At this moment, the understanding of martial arts of the victorious Sun City Lord was fully reflected. The surrounding spiritual energy was absorbed by him, and the surrounding laws were controlled by him. This allowed him to display combat power far beyond the peak of the myth with the power of the peak of the myth. This was similar to Yi Shiwen's. Therefore, Yi Shiwen was somewhat aggressive. Otherwise, even a peak of the myth like young Master Yang would not be a match for him at all. It was unknown how much space was shattered. A majestic force directly pressed down on Yi Shiwen. At this time, Yi Shiwen put his hands together and pinched a seal. It directly transformed into the overturning heaven seal and blasted towards the buried heaven hand. Boom! The entire sky suddenly shattered. The power produced by the collision between the huge palm and Yi Shiwen's overturning heaven seal directly caused the sky to collapse, revealing the chaos within. The tyrannical power made the faces of the experts of the myth turn pale all of a sudden. The victorious Sun City Lord relied on his profound attainments in martial arts to display power far beyond the peak of the myth with a flip of his hand. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen relied purely on his own strength to resist. After putting on the 5 Emperors' battle armor and integrating 3 martial arts incarnations, his overall strength showed a trend of rising in a straight line. Human, you won't understand. If you don't prove your Tao, you're just an ant in the end. Even if you integrate 3 martial arts incarnations, you can't possibly be a match for me. Although the victorious Sun City Lord was only a remnant consciousness, and his strength was far from being comparable to the main body, his vision was not bad. He could almost see the true source of Yi Shiwen's strength at a glance. 3 martial arts incarnations? You must be joking. Whether it was the experts of the Flying Cloud Castle or the Sky-Bearing Castle, when they heard the victorious Sun City Lord say this, they all felt that he was King kidding them. They were all favored by the heavens, and there were many who integrated 1 martial arts incarnation. However, there were very few who could integrate 2 martial arts incarnations at the same time. As for 3 martial arts incarnations, it was simply not something that a demigod could achieve. However, Yi Shiwen had done it. Everyone somewhat understood why Yi Shiwen was able to erupt with such an astonishing combat power. 3 martial arts incarnations. The power of the 3 main bodies were superimposed on his body. That terrifying power was enough to scare people to death. It was completely inestimable. In particular, the experts of the Flying Cloud Castle were completely shocked at this time. Although they were glad that they didn't die tragically like the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, when they heard that Yi Shiwen had integrated 3 martial arts incarnations at the same time, they felt a chill in their hearts. What kind of monster was this? The cultivation speed of these elite heroes should be one of the best in the world, but Yi Shiwen was actually able to surpass them. It was truly unimaginable. No wonder he is so powerful. If he can escape from the hands of the victorious Sun City Lord this time, I'm afraid he will instantly become famous in the world. Jin Buhuan said that he could escape from the hands of the victorious Sun City Lord. Naturally, it could not be a fake remnant consciousness. At this time, he also did not know whether his original proposal was right or wrong. This castle lord was really good at causing trouble. This was just the beginning, and he had already killed a son of God. Perhaps when the time came, even the gods would be furious. Needless to say, Yao Xingqing and the others were naturally his mortal enemies. He should have gotten rid of them, but at the same time, in addition to being troubled, his strength was indeed impeccable. In the myths, he was invincible, and even the peak of the myth was not his match. Chapter 2191. But this time they had provoked a god. When they thought of this, they felt like fainting. What was the difference between provoking a god and seeking one's own death? Although they wanted to prove their Tao and become a member of the gods, the fear of the gods was deeply engraved in their hearts. Although you are not bad, you are still an ant who has not become a god. You can't be my opponent. The city lord of Xingyang City was extremely confident. Although it was only a spirit incarnation, it was almost the strongest realm below the Tao. Like the great elder of Flying Cloud Castle, who was at the peak of the mythical realm, he could be killed on the spot. He could kill a mythical realm master with a single thought. As he walked, he was completely integrated with the world. Roar! He attacked. With a roar, the wind and clouds surged, and the laws between heaven and earth surged wildly, forming a huge tornado. If ordinary mythical realm masters were to be swept into it, they would immediately be crushed. These laws turned into a big hand and directly pressed down. Good, 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 take my punch, human Tao fist. Yi Shiwen blasted out a punch, and the mighty power of the human Tao swept out directly, forcibly meeting the palm. Boom! The air condensed, and then a powerful force was released from it, collapsing the space in an instant. Yi Shiwen did not move, and his whole body was covered with golden divinity, directly removing this force. The city lord of Xingyang City kept retreating a few steps before barely stopping. Although the city lord of Xingyang City could borrow the power of the laws to put himself above the peak of the mythical realm, in the end, he was only a wisp of spirit. He did not even have a physical body, so how could he compete with Yi Shiwen's gilded tyrant form? But in general, it was still a tie. However, Yi Shiwen was still very surprised. It was just a wisp of the spirit of a god, but it could burst out power above the peak of the mythical realm. It was really powerful. What kind of strength was this? It should be known that Yi Shiwen had integrated 3 martial Tao incarnations, in addition to the state of the 5 emperors. It could be said that it was enough to sweep away almost all the peak of the mythical realm, but the city lord of Xinjiang City could actually be on par with him. This strength was unfathomable. But then he felt relieved. In the past, he also relied on the power of the god's divine thoughts to temporarily contend with the peak of the mythical realm. At that time, his cultivation level was far below the city lord of Victoria's Sun City, yet he was able to display such combat power. Looking at it now, it was no longer strange. Bang! 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 The battle between the two sides was intense. Especially since he had condensed his 3rd martial arts incarnation, he couldn't find a suitable opponent. Yi Shiwen's battle was incisive. After cultivating to this level, he did not stop improving. On the contrary, he had an even stronger desire for the next level. Tao corroboration was an extremely close realm. That would be his future opponent. Now it could be considered a warm-up. He couldn't even deal with the incarnation of a god, let alone the god himself. Fear flashed in the eyes of the city lord of Xinjiang City. In all these years, there was only one person who could contend with him as a demigod. He held the silver flute in his hand. Powerful sound waves were constantly blasting through the vast sky and bombarding towards Yi Shiwen. Bang! Both sides fiercely clapped and separated in the void. Yi Shiwen didn't move. His body was tyrannical. Even such a battle couldn't shake him. Almost in the next moment, his counterattack followed like a shadow. Although this battle was enjoyable, the real elemental energy in his body couldn't continue to support such a battle. The consumption was too great. His whole body directly bloomed with endless murderous intention. The murderous aura was endless, and he directly attacked. Soul-breaking blood claw. 5 huge cracks directly blasted out, like the autumn water in the sky, tearing everything apart. Boom! With one claw, all the defenses of the city lord of Victoria's Sun City were smashed, and his whole body was blasted out. His overall strength couldn't be compared with Yi Shiwen. He could borrow the power of heaven and earth to display a combat power far beyond ordinary, but his own strength was still far inferior to Yi Shiwen. This was determined by the essence. He flew in the air, quickly adjusted his position, and desperately continued to use real elemental energy. He wanted to take the opportunity to launch a wave of counterattack. It had been a long time since he fought such a battle, not to mention being forced to such an extent by a demigod. It was simply a shame. Even if it was just a little bit of divine sense, he couldn't allow himself to fail. At this moment, he was like an immortal martial god. How could Yi Shiwen give him such a chance? He had to finish the battle as soon as possible and get out of it. In his body, the mysterious space was spinning rapidly. Countless information was constantly being analyzed, and then directly imprinted into his body. Suddenly, his eyes suddenly opened, and he only felt a powerful force melting in his body. Human Tao Fist. This punch of his directly blasted out, directly shattering the sky. Most importantly, the human Tao Fist he blasted out was not only the original surging mortal world, but also directly surged out a world. This was the world of the human clan. This meant that the human Tao Fist had finally entered the next level. In the fierce battle just now, his understanding of the human Tao Fist had also rapidly improved. It was in such an extreme battle that his understanding could have such earth-shaking changes. The sudden upgrade of the human Tao Fist caught the city lord of Victoria's Sun City unprepared. He staggered on the spot, and was suppressed by the human Tao world. He was seriously injured on the spot. Originally, with the divine sense of a deity, coupled with his understanding of martial arts, he could easily blow up ordinary demigods, but unfortunately, he encountered a freak like Yi Shiwen. At the most critical moment, Yi Shiwen's human Dao fist had improved again, and his strength had increased by a level. Boom! The city lord of victorious Sun City screamed on the spot, and directly exploded. And the silver flute in his hand also fell into Yi Shiwen's hand. Yi Shiwen looked at the silver flute that had finally fallen into his hands after a lot of trouble. He directly probed it with his divine sense, and suddenly a lot of information about the silver flute was instantly grasped by him. 9 Heavens Soul-Sucking Flute. This was the name of this silver flute. As long as it was activated properly, it could even control endless lives, just like how young Master Yang controlled those blood demons to attack the city. Even if they were unwilling, they would still be controlled and soul-sucked. If used properly, this was a very powerful flawed artifact. At this time, the people from the Flying Cloud Castle were already scared silly. Originally, they thought that the city lord of victorious Sun City had appeared in person. Even if it was just a wisp of divine sense, it would be enough to take down Yi Shiwen, so they did not scatter and escape in all directions. But who knew that the city lord of victorious Sun City was not a match for Yi Shiwen at all, and was easily blown up by him. Now they were completely exposed in front of Yi Shiwen for a while. Almost immediately, they broke away from the initial shock. They wanted to escape, but Yi Shiwen had already arrived in front of them without them knowing when he had arrived. Fight him to the death. These people from the Flying Cloud Castle were already frightened by Yi Shiwen. But there was nothing they could do. In the face of Yi Shiwen, who could easily blow up the incarnation of a deity, they almost had no power to fight back. Although they did not have the power to fight back, it was impossible for them to sit and wait for death. But this time, Yi Shiwen had no intention of killing them. The Great Elder and the Second Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle had been destroyed by him one after another, in addition to the several masters at the peak of the mythical realm that he had killed before. Now, there were only 7 masters at the 9th level of Paong realm left in the Flying Cloud Castle, which was not as good as the Sky-Bearing Castle. They could not pose any threat to him at all. With the precedent set by the Sky-Bearing Castle, he also had the idea of taking in the Flying Cloud Castle. With the power of the Sky-Bearing Castle and the Flying Cloud Castle, it was enough to dominate this area. Moreover, he had 100% offended a deity. The deity might not know it now, but for him, there was another pressure. He had to grow before the deity could react. He did not have the time to train his confidants one by one. Directly annexing them was the best way. He took a step forward and said, "Surrender to me, or die." These mythical masters of the Flying Cloud Castle looked at each other. Yi Shiwen had just offended a deity to death. When the time came, it was very likely that he would be attacked by another deity. No matter what, they did not want to get involved. But now, what other way was there? "I'm willing to surrender." These people did not think for long. One by one, they knelt down. The attack of the deity might be a matter for the future, but if they were not willing to surrender now, the only outcome would be death. Yi Shiwen nodded with satisfaction. At least they knew what was good for them. Each of them planted a blood god in their bodies. If they dared to betray him, they would explode on the spot. Yi Mo himself was a great demon. He had once followed a powerful devil king. With Yi Mo following him all year round, how could Yi Shiwen not know anything about these methods of controlling people? The blood god was an extremely brilliant method. It was said that it was once created by a peerless master. When it was at its most powerful, it would form a sea of blood. As long as the sea of blood was not destroyed, he would not die. If they did not betray him, the blood god would parasitize their bodies and stimulate the growth of their skills. However, once they turned the tables, the blood god would explode instantly. Even their skills would be absorbed by the blood god. Finally, it would return to Yi Shiwen's body and increase his skills, becoming nourishment for Yi Shiwen. Life and death were only a matter of a thought. Yi Shiwen knew many such methods, but he did not have many opportunities to use them. Chapter 2192. These experts of the Flying Cloud Castle dared to be angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. They had no choice but to bow their heads under the eaves. However, Yi Shiwen didn't care. With the blood god on their side, it didn't matter whether they were convinced or not. Their life and death were in his hand. Even if they went to find the gods, they would not be able to solve the blood god's son. Therefore, he did not have to worry at all. The experts from the Flying Cloud Castle were all here. As long as he subdued them, the rest would be a piece of cake. He mobilized these two fortresses so that the combat power of these two fortresses could be twisted into a rope. Then, Yi Shiwen sent the experts from the Flying Cloud Castle back to take over the Flying Cloud Castle while he returned to the Sky-bearing Castle. In any case, the Sky-bearing Castle was closer to Yi Shiwen than the Flying Cloud Castle. The process of him subduing the Flying Cloud Castle also fell into the eyes of many experts from the Sky-bearing Castle. They looked at each other and did not know what to say. He easily subdued the Flying Cloud Castle, an old enemy that had been hostile for thousands of years. More importantly, the Sky-bearing Castle and the Flying Cloud Castle had been hostile for many years. Now that they had suddenly become allies, the relationship between them had suddenly become strange. They were not hostile, but they were definitely not friendly either. However, after seeing Yi Shiwen's means, they could not say much. In fact, it was also a good thing for them to have the protection of such a powerful castle master. Such a terrifying blood demon tide could almost be resisted by the fortresses, but Yi Shiwen was able to deal with it quickly and easily. No one could stop him. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would never believe that someone could achieve such a level. He did not seem like a human at all. Although he could not be like the legendary gods, who could cover the sky with one hand and destroy the world as if it was a common thing. Now that the Flying Cloud Castle has also surrendered to us, they are two different systems. However, they do not dare to betray me. I may not be here often, so I will leave the matters of the two fortresses to you in the future. Yi Shiwen said to Jin Buhuan. Although he wanted to establish his own force and borrow the power of the Sky-bearing Castle and the Flying Cloud Castle, it did not mean that he wanted to personally intervene in these trivial matters. Otherwise, he would not be able to cultivate in the future. In this aspect, Jin Buhuan was indeed the best candidate. Jin Buhuan's eyes lit up when he heard this. In the past, he could at most manage the Sky-bearing Castle. Now, even the Flying Cloud Castle was under his control. Most importantly, unlike the original system of equal elders, with Yi Shiwen's authorization, he had suddenly become an existence that was second only to one and above all others. He was in charge of all the elders at the peak of the Paong realm. Yes, Fort Master. Yi Shiwen nodded and said, I'm going to go into closed-door training now. You'll do your best to find Yao Shengqing, Jing Tianlei, and Jun Dingtian in the blood prison. He had only just condensed his Saber Dao incarnation. If not for this sudden battle, he would probably still be consolidating in seclusion. Moreover, after this battle, his human Dao fist had already reached the point of perfection, and it had become one of his trump cards. He needed time to consolidate it, and he also needed to replenish the energy of the three clones as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to endure the next intense battle. Anyway, there were still more than 2 months before the 5-year sentence. Most importantly, the next battle was about to begin in more than 2 months. Last time, he only broke into the top 100 before withdrawing. This time, his goal was to become the champion. Only then could he truly enter the eyes of the higher-ups of the Hidden Valley and receive strong training. There was still some time before he could truly prove his Dao. If he could receive strong training, it would undoubtedly greatly shorten this time. Fort Master, if it's Jing Tianlei, I know that he actually has his own force in the blood prison. He has also built his own castle. However, it is closer to the center of the blood prison than the Flying Cloud Castle and the Sky-Bearing Castle. We also retreated from the center of the blood prison to the edge because we could not survive there. Jean Buhuan could not help but say with some emotion. They actually have their own forces? Yi Shiwen was a little stunned. It seemed that he was already late. There were already many people ahead of him. It seemed that this was also the general trend. After he had truly proved his Tao, he would also join the fight for hegemony. Then, where is Jing Tianlei's castle? Yi Shiwen's eyes flashed with murderous intention. Cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots was the best way. In the void, even if he defeated Jing Tianlei and Yao Shengqing, he could not really do anything to them. Only by finding their real bodies in the blood prison and killing them could he solve all the problems once and for all. In the God transformation abyss, killing was punishable. However, it was different here. In the blood prison, no one cared about it. Even if someone wanted to interfere, there was no evidence at all. The heaven's secrets here were chaotic. Even if a Tao confirmation expert wanted to calculate it, it would be impossible. Therefore, he was confident that even the Lord of Victorious Sun City would not find anything wrong in a short period of time. By the time the Lord of Victorious Sun City found out, he would probably have a huge improvement. Jean Buhuan immediately told Yi Shiwen the coordinates of Jing Tianlei's castle. Yi Shiwen looked at it. It was not very far away. It was only hundreds of millions of kilometers away from here. In short, he still had time to act before the battle began. After the battle began, his strength would be exposed. Jing Tianlei and Yao Shengqing were not fools. If they avoided the battle at that time, it would be a real big problem. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that they still did not know about it. He wanted to catch them off guard. However, Lord of Victorious Sun City, although the Lord of Victorious Sun City might not be aware in a short period of time, it is inevitable that he will be aware after a long time. What should we do at that time? Should we temporarily withdraw from the blood prison and wait for the Lord of Victorious Sun City to prove his Tao before coming back? Jean Buhuan said. Since his position had been determined, he would consider for Yi Shiwen wholeheartedly. Similarly, he was also considering for himself. He had also thought it through. Even if he offended the Lord of Victorious Sun City, it was no big deal for him to leave the blood prison temporarily. Yi Shiwen's potential and strength were absolutely unprecedented. They were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Such a person had appeared very rarely in history. However, it had never been heard of a person who couldn't prove his Tao without dying prematurely. In his opinion, as long as Yi Shiwen did not die halfway, he would definitely prove his Tao in the future. The current temporary concession and tolerance were nothing at all. Don't worry. There is no need at all. When the time comes, I will also move the Soaring Cloud Castle here. I will arrange a formation. Even if a deity comes personally, he will not be able to break it without fighting for hundreds of years. Yi Shiwen said confidently. The Ghost Heart Fire formation appeared in his mind. It was a formation used by the Lord of Darkness to suppress the evil spirits in his body and to protect himself. It was extremely powerful. As long as there was enough energy, even a deity would not be able to break through it easily. This also had the strength to compete with a master of Tao under special circumstances. He naturally could not supply the operation of the Ghost Heart Fire formation. However, what if he used the Bloodstone Mine? The Bloodstone energy in the Bloodstone Mine was endless. In a short period of time, even the Ghost Heart Fire formation could not completely consume it. Moreover, in addition to the Bloodstone Mine in the Soaring Cloud Castle, there were 2 Bloodstone Mines in the Soaring Cloud Castle. The Bloodstone reserves could be said to be very abundant. He did not have to be afraid at all. When the time came, he would have a way to advance or retreat. This was where his greatest confidence came from. Even if the Lord of victorious Sun City attacked aggressively, he did not have to worry at all. Not to mention hundreds of years, his strength would have earth-shaking changes in a few decades. At that time, it would be hard to say who would kill who. Jin Buhuan was a little curious. He did not know what formation Yi Shiwen was talking about. In this world, there were countless formations. However, there were not many that could compete with a deity with the strength of a demigod. He could be considered as an experienced and knowledgeable person. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Countless unprecedented formations were constantly flashing through his mind. However, it was impossible for him to know about them before Yi Shiwen revealed them. However, although he was curious, he did not dare to ask much. In that case, I will leave this place to you. Let the Soaring Cloud Castle move their fortress near the Soaring Sky Castle. In this way they can protect each other when they are attacked. They can't take care of both the front and the back, said Yi Shiwen. As for the few bloodstone mines, wait for me to come back and capture them nearby. Otherwise they will be far away. Jin Buhuan's eyes widened when he heard this. Capturing the bloodstone mines could not be done by relying on powerful strength. This was because the bloodstone mines had been firmly integrated with the earth vein. It was easy to mine them bit by bit. However, if one wanted to capture the bloodstone mines, they would have to contend with the power of the entire earth vein. This was impossible unless one reached Dao validation. Otherwise, the Soaring Sky Castle would have captured the bloodstone mines a long time ago. However, it was impossible to do so. The vicinity of the bloodstone mines was easy to attack and difficult to defend. This caused the distance between the Soaring Sky Castle and the bloodstone mines that belonged to the Soaring Sky Castle. However, Yi Shiwen actually said that he had a way. This was simply inhuman. This was a method that only deities could have. However, since Yi Shiwen had said so, Jin Buhuan believed that he definitely had a way. Otherwise, he would not have spoken without thinking. He was immediately overjoyed. If there was a bloodstone mine under the Soaring Sky Castle that continuously emitted powerful essence, he would naturally achieve twice the results with half the effort while cultivating here. However, all of this would have to wait until Yi Shiwen returned. I will leave the trivial matters to you. In addition, don't slack off in finding out the existence of Yao Shengqing and Jun Dingtian. After Yi Shiwen finished giving instructions, he immediately flew towards the depths of the blood prison. Chapter 2193. The boundless blood purgatory was a sea of blood. Far off in the distance was a sea of blood, making it impossible to see anything clearly. Countless ferocious blood demons traversed through the mountains and valleys, and all sorts of terrifying sounds echoed out. Even the places where powerful martial artists gathered were like stars in the night sky, scattered throughout the boundless blood purgatory. A golden figure streaked through the air. His powerful qi and blood attracted the attention of many blood demons, but when they sensed how powerful he was, they quietly retreated, not daring to approach him. Yi Shiwen flew for a full day and night, flying at full speed. Only then did he reach the depths of the blood purgatory. The deeper he went, the more powerful the blood demons he encountered became. After entering the depths of the blood purgatory, none of the blood demons he encountered were below the deity transformation level. They were all at least at the deity transformation level. He even sensed some extremely powerful blood demon patriarchs lying dormant in the mountains and valleys, ready to devour the heavens at any moment. They were all just half a step away from proving their Tao. Ordinary blood demons couldn't keep up with his speed, even if they didn't have eyes. Before long, he had left them in the dust. Following the coordinates provided by Buhuan Gold, Yi Shiwen flew all the way through the heavens until he finally arrived at a fortress. This fortress had been built by none other than Jing Tianlei. From a distance, he could see numerous powerful auras piercing through the air, fusing with the surroundings. All of them were deity transformation experts. This fortress was much stronger than Soaring Cloud Fortress and Sky-Piercing Fortress. There were no less than 20 peak myth realm beings in it. Clearly, they were all Jing Tianlei's subordinate. It was no wonder he was so arrogant. He had so many powerful fighters under his command. He did have the right to be so arrogant. If it had been before, Chu Qingci wouldn't have been able to do anything to Jing Tianlei, who was hiding in the fortress. But things were different now. Jing Tianlei's strength had long since turned the heavens and the earth upside down. Compared to 5 years ago, he couldn't even be mentioned in the same breath. However, he wasn't in a hurry to attack. With a flip of his palm, the 9 firmaments soul-sucking flute appeared in his hand. He wanted to test out the power of the flute. Because of that, he wasn't in a hurry to attack. When he reappeared, he was already in a tribe of blood demons. The leader of the tribe was also a powerful elite at the peak of Myth Realm. He led many blood demons. "Who are you? How dare you intrude into my tribe?" The blood demon leader roared angrily, and a huge bloody claw stretched out. Countless blood energies formed a bloody net, intertwined into an inescapable net, and grabbed towards Yi Shiwen. Not only this blood demon leader, but many mythical-level blood demons also roared and appeared one after another. A domain was formed in the entire tribe, and a powerful force was mobilized, turning into a monstrous power that charged towards Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen was not afraid at all. In the face of the martial arts torrent, he directly formed a big hand and grabbed all the martial arts torrents in an instant. Yi Shiwen himself tore apart a golden light and suddenly appeared in front of the leader of the blood demons. He was like an invincible devil. With every step he took, the aura of his whole body would become more and more tyrannical. Some of the weaker blood demons were directly blown away, unable to get close to Yi Shiwen at all. Hum! The melodious sound of a flute rang out, forming shock waves that directly rushed into the ears of these blood demons. Suddenly, these blood demons became confused, and only the most primitive instinct to fight was left. They obediently knelt at Yi Shiwen's feet. The leader of the blood demons only lasted for a short while before he knelt under the 9 heavens soul-sucking flute. The power of this 9th heaven soul-sucking flute was simply terrifying. It was definitely a rare sight. It was just a defective artifact, but it could control these mythical blood demons as if it was a common occurrence. If it could be completely repaired, even gods would find it difficult to escape such control. It was really a good treasure. Yi Shiwen revealed a satisfied smile. It was really a good treasure. Young Master Yang had racked his brains to only be able to control the leader of the blood demons and then use the leader of the blood demons to attack the city, forming a tide of blood demons. However, Yi Shiwen was different. His skills were more than 10 times stronger than young Master Yang's, and he could easily control all the blood demons. In this way, once the leader escaped, the remaining blood demons would not fall and scatter. And this was just the beginning. With the same method, Yi Shiwen very quickly controlled dozens of blood demon tribes within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles. In the depths of the blood prison, the density of the blood demon tribes was also far higher than in the periphery. The only drawback was that to control these blood demons, he had to constantly maintain the operation of the 9 heavens soul-sucking flute. At most, he could only control this many blood demon tribes. For this, he had specially burned 3 pieces of celestial source gas, which was a huge price to pay. However, he did not care. As long as he could kill Jing Tianlei, everything would be worth it. The mighty tide of blood demons instantly rushed toward Jing Tianlei's fortress. Monstrous blood aura surged out, forming a slow blood cloud that covered the sky within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. From afar, it was incomparably terrifying. Inside the blood cloud, countless powerful blood demons were constantly roaring and bellowing. On the ground, there were also countless powerful mythical-level blood demons roaring and rushing toward Jing Tianlei. These blood demons had automatically cultivated to the mythical level. Compared to the experts who cultivated various martial arts, they were far inferior. However, they had the advantage in numbers. Tide of blood demons. Quick, defend. Almost in the next moment, someone in the fortress noticed the countless blood demons rushing toward them. In the depths of the blood prison, tides of blood demons were far too frequent. They had long since gotten used to it. The formations in the fortress were resurrected one after another. Powerful torrents of energy swept out, directly wiping out many blood demons on the spot. However, even more formations had just been resurrected when they were taken over by the swarm of blood demons that had swarmed over. There were too many blood demons, and they were too strong. Among them, there was no lack of patriarchs who were at the peak of the mythical level. Patriarchs, who were usually hiding in the rear, seemed to have taken some kind of drug. This time they charged forward in a frenzy. Although there were many spell formations, there was no way they could withstand the onslaught of so many blood demons. The first defensive spell formation set up by the fortress collapsed in an instant. Countless blood demons charged toward the second line of defense, which had already reached the fortress. On the fortress, many experts of the various clans displayed their ultimate technique. They were very experienced in dealing with blood demons. Unfortunately, the blood demon tide this time was far beyond their imagination. They were not afraid of death at all. Everything they did was for the sake of capturing the fortress. How dare you! At this time, dozens of powerful figures flew up and charged into the crowd of blood demons. They slaughtered them wantonly. They were all powerful experts at the peak of the mythical level who were guarding the fortress. The blood demon tide this time was too strange. They did not care about the casualties or the gains and losses. All they wanted was to capture the fortress. This made them unable to sit still. In the past, although the blood demons were crazy, they would never do anything without a reason. They would not suffer such a huge number of casualties for no reason. Therefore, these elders could not sit still anymore. They all took action. As expected, as soon as these experts at the peak of the mythical level took action, they immediately reversed the situation and stopped the advancing blood demon tide outside the fortress. The concept of a peak mythical level expert and an ordinary mythical level expert was simply not the same. However, soon, the experts at the peak of the mythical level in the blood demon tide also charged toward the elders of the fortress under Yi Shiwen's control. Boom! 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 These powerful experts at the peak of the mythical level fought with each other. Their fight caused the sky to collapse and the earth to crack. The surrounding space had just been repaired when it was completely destroyed. Above the blood cloud, Yi Shiwen stood with his hands behind his back. He looked at the battle below indifferently. The person he was waiting for had not appeared yet. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to take action. Who are you? How dare you control these blood demons to attack us? Come out and meet me if you have the guts! A cold shout came from the fortress. Then, a powerful figure with a terrifying aura rushed out and pinched a blood demon at the peak of the mythical level to death. His body was surrounded by countless rules that formed golden threads, indicating that he was only half a step away from the Tao-proving realm. He was only a little bit away. Who else could this person be but Jing Tianlei? This was the first time Yi Shiwen had seen Jing Tianlei in person. He was even more powerful than the rumors said. He was indeed only a little bit away. Judging by his momentum, he would definitely be able to prove his Tao in less than 100 years. He could tell at a glance that the blood demon tide this time was very abnormal. Someone was probably controlling it from behind. You've come at the right time. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Yi Shiwen's figure directly swept down from the blood cloud. He directly rushed towards Jing Tianlei with a tremendous momentum. Soul-breaking blood claw. His claw directly scratched out 5 blood scars, shattering the vast sky. The claws grew bigger and bigger. In an instant, they had grown to thousands of feet in size. They directly slammed down towards Jing Tianlei. Jing Tianlei was immediately shocked. He could feel the terrifying power contained in the 5 claw shadows. He fiercely stomped his feet and directly flew thousands of miles away. The 5 blood scars directly fell on the fortress, causing the entire fortress to rumble and shake. Countless arrays were instantly annihilated. A huge hole instantly appeared in the defense line that could withstand the attack. Countless blood demons swarmed out, and the defense line instantly collapsed. However, Yi Shiwen did not care so much. He directly took a step forward and rushed in front of Jing Tianlei. At this time, Jing Tianlei finally saw clearly who the person was. It was actually Yi Shiwen. In the past 5 years, he had not been able to find Yi Shiwen's whereabouts. Although he had always been worried about Yi Shiwen, he did not pay too much attention to him. How could a mere junior pose a threat to him? Who would have thought that it was Yi Shiwen who caused all of this today? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.